Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the fuck up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juice pumping, boys.
Welcome to Crunch Time Sports, the Crunch Time Sports Show with Jeff Iafrate and Booner. I'm Jeff Iafrate. Booner will be joining us in about 10 minutes. We got a packed show today. Thankfully, the Pride of Detroit, Jeremy, Eric, we're having Drew Petzing on. We're going to talk about the interview today. There's so many things to take away from that interview. You got to learn so much about the human being. He commented on so many different things. David Montgomery, Jared Goff. We're going to talk about it all. Oh, and we'll also have Jeremy Risman on. So he was kind enough to join the show today. So later in the first hour to start the second hour, we'll have Jeremy Risman on as well. So a lot to get to. It's like a Drew Petzing frame show with Jeremy Risman coming in as well. I see the people in the chat. Shift God, what up, my man? MC3, who dat is in there as well. Don't forget, guys, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. If you're listening on any podcast platform, leave a 5-star review and get your merchandise, officialctsports.com. Like I said, a lot of Drew Petzing. Because of the interview, he spoke on a lot of things. So I want to make sure we hammer that today because he gave us a lot of content to talk about. And I'll tell you what, I think MC3, Houdat, put it really well. The coach and the play caller will need to see, but the human being gets an A from me so far. I mean, if you guys haven't seen the interview, head over to Pride of Detroit and check them out. They do great work. And the interview was really good. You got to learn just about the human being and just kind of his coaching philosophy, what he wants his offense to look like, which, it's all been speculative at this point because no one really knows. I mean, you haven't heard Drew Petzing really speak. The only thing you've really gotten in terms of information is Arizona Cardinals fans. And then we had Cardinals writers on to kind of give insight to what they saw from Drew Petzing. But all of that stuff's obviously going to be negative. So it was nice to hear directly from the horse's mouth and really get Drew Petzing's thought process on what he wants to do offensively. What does he think about Jared Goff? What does he think about David Montgomery? What does he think about Dan Campbell? Stuff like that. Shift says, Jeff, did you see Fox Sports free agency predictions yet? I did not. I will check those out. Well, maybe we can talk about that tomorrow. I'm curious who they have the Lions signing. We'll get to also the restructuring conversation today as well, because I saw a graphic today and it basically listed every NFL team, the money that they could free up if they restructure, and the Lions are on that list. So you'll get to see. Steven, what's going on, my man? He says, not going to lie, I went from being somewhat skeptical to 100% all in on Pets after the interview. Burning issues, what's going on, brother? I see you in there. And by the way, I want to make, this is where I'm at with this comment. All right. I am skeptical, of course. I mean, you hired John Morton. It didn't work out. I wasn't a big fan of the John Morton hire. Ironically, I was more confident in Calvin Shepard. Little did I know that after the season, I would be not really confident in either. People may disagree with Calvin Shepard. That's fine. You don't have to agree with that. But I'll say this on Drew Petzing. Yeah, of course you're going to be skeptical. It's like getting your heart broken, getting back into a relationship. You're, of course, going to be skeptical. But you can't deny that Drew Petzing is a better coach and highly regarded as opposed to John Morton. Just look at their resumes. I mean, look at the resume of John Morton. And, people bring up, that's why I never really dove too much into all the coaches that Drew Petzing's worked for, because John Morton, you could say the same thing. Oh, he's worked with Sean Payton. Oh, he's worked with John Gruden. Guys, I don't really care about all that. I just care about the coach, not who you've been around, but the coach. It's like it's really what matters. And for me, with Drew Petzing, I am more confident than I am with John Morton, but I've tried to be as disciplined as possible, not buying in based on coach talk. I try not to, because that's gotten me in trouble as well. I know Booner, Booner's going to love, he loves Drew Petzing. So he loves Drew Petzing for a lot of different reasons, but I can assume we're going to talk a lot of good things about Drew Petzing, and rightfully so. But let's not forget the biggest, the biggest point here, which is, people hate this, but it's just the truth, especially with offensive coordinator hires here. You have to see it. And I talked about it in the video I made today, which you guys can check out. It's on our YouTube. My biggest thing I want to see from Drew Petzing is obviously not anything as it relates to the human being. I'm a big fan of the guy, the dude. He seems like a great guy. Seems like he's super bright. I can see why the Lions liked him. For me, it's all situational. I want to see, what does this team look like offensively? 2 minutes to halftime, coming out of halftime, 2 minutes in a football game with a drive to win the game. How do you look when you need to drive to close the game? Like, that's the stuff I want to see. Playoff football. Like, that stuff is what matters, because even with John Morton early on, they were scoring points. He scored 50-something points against the Bears, but something wasn't clicking. He wasn't getting the best out of some of his best players. Jamison Williams was being underutilized. And clearly we'll get to it with the Drew Petzing stuff, because he said some things that I think it gives you more confidence in John Morton for sure. But that's where I'm at with it. Like, I'm a big fan of the human. I'm a fan of his offensive philosophies. I'm a fan of what he wants to do with this Lions offense. I think it's a good fit. But I have to see him call plays. In the regular season, I just do. Before I anoint him the next Ben Johnson. I do. I know no one really knew Ben would be Ben until you really saw it. And you saw hints of it at the end of that season when they fired Anthony Lynn, when he was the passing game coordinator. The offense got better. And then the next year they hit the ground running, and you're like, okay, this guy's, you knew right away, pretty much right away as the season was going on. You're like, okay, he's a good play caller. That's all it really is. Okay. So I want to see it with Drew Petzing too. I think he's got a lot of talent. They got to obviously help him out as well. They got to fix the offensive line. No question. I would assume they keep David Montgomery. I think that's the smart decision. I've said that before. So keeping David Montgomery will help him out, help this offense out, of course. Here we go. Jomo says, I do think it matters who he's coached with, because good coaches take a little from each coach they've been with, both good and bad. That is true. You are not wrong. I think where I was coming from when I said that is, no matter who you're around, it's up to you. Okay. It's really up to you. How much are you going to take away from the coach that you're with? How much are you going to learn from that coach? You can be around greatness. Okay. You can be a teammate of Tom Brady, or you can be a backup quarterback to Tom Brady, or you can be a teammate of LeBron James, or you can be, under Bill Belichick. Like, it doesn't mean you're going to be a great head coach, or offensive coordinator in this case. It's really up to, you have to still see it. Like John, that's the point I was making. I'm not saying he's John Morton, but I don't always look at who you are around. It's a bonus. Don't get me wrong. It's nice. If you're around different guys that influence you, it's really nice. I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all. I'm just saying it's not as important to me. Josh McDaniels is a really good offensive coordinator. He was around Bill Belichick for a long time, and he just couldn't be a head coach on his own. So I just want to see, I don't really care. I don't care as much. You can hate that take. That's fine. I don't really look at, Drew Petzing was around North Turner and all these guys. That's awesome. But can he call plays? And we're going to find that out. And again, like I said, I'm more confident than I was with John Morton. So, and bringing in Mike Kafka as almost like another, mind in the room. I don't want to say safety blanket. It just sounds disrespectful to Drew Petzing, but it does make me more confident. So I get what you're saying, Jomo, but that's where I'm coming from with it. We still have to see it. Even if that you think that's a lazy take or a wait and see take, it's just the fact of the matter. I mean, it really is. Dr. Detroit says, what matters is how good our defense is. That's obvious. Need a center and left tackle and a massive DN. It's that simple. They need to spend $60 million from the 128 they can make. I agree with that. The defense is what really matters. I mean, that's what me and Booner have talked about on the show. Like, we could talk about Drew Petzing, but in reality, is this offense going to average 15 points, 20 points a game? No, they're going to be really good. They are. So I think sometimes the Drew Petzing thing, I do agree, it gets a little overblown, because to me, the biggest question is what this defense looks like. Okay. To me, the biggest question mark heading into the season is not your offensive coordinator. It's your defensive coordinator. All right. That's my opinion. Now, you could disagree with that, but we all watched the same Super Bowl. Okay. We watched two teams get there because of, they have good offensive coordinators, but they also have really good defensive coordinators. They do. So I agree with that. I'm looking at this defense. How much can they improve? What is Brad going to add to this defense? And we're going to cover the draft and dive into a lot of that stuff and talk about what they're going to do in the first round. But yeah, I agree. Sometimes people forget about the defense, but it really is important. It's Steven says, I feel like Petzing had great answers for everything that we were worried about. Why he ran gap instead of zone runs, why he ran so much 13 personnel, why he called plays. Come on, dude. Dude has Goff now. I agree with that. Again, like I'm not gonna crap on the guy. Okay. He had some great answers in the interview. He talked highly about Goff, and let's defend the guy. I mean, it's the best quarterback he's had. I mean, Kyler Murray, Jacoby Brissett, that's what he's had. You know, I can't really fault, and the more I think about it, I can't fault him. He's not going to have a top 5 offense with Jacoby Brissett or Kyler Murray. You're just not. You know, all the injuries they've had. So I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt there. You know, and again, he's a very, very smart guy. Go watch the interview. You'll see what I mean. Very, very smart guy. AG's Burner says if the O-line gets fixed, anything less than top 8 offense is a failure, in my opinion. Yeah. If they have a good O-line, they should be a top of the league offense. Yeah, especially if Laporta gets healthy. Yeah, I agree with that. There's no reason this offense shouldn't have success. That's why, to me, that's why I bring up the situationally stuff. Like, what is this offense situationally? Because that's really what's going to matter ultimately. That's where they failed with John Morton. You know, not utilizing your players. They were bad situationally. Third down, great example. They were bad on third down, and you could blame some of that on the O-line, but they still scored points. They got stagnant at points in the game, you know, coming out of the second half into the third quarter. Like, that's what I mean more so. If you want to see, what am I going to see out of this offense? That's what you want to see. Okay. Overall, they're still going to move up the field with Amon-Ra, J-Mo, Sam Laporta, Goff, you know, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. They're not all of a sudden going to fall off a cliff. They did it with John Moore, and I think they'll be fine with Drew Petzing. I really do. You know, I think that coaching matters in the critical areas I mentioned. Players are going to make plays, but great coaches, great offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators put players in positions to make plays consistently in critical situations. And that's what I want to see out of Drew Petzing. That's what I want to see out of Drew Petzing. He said they're in the building right now working. Mike Kafka, Drew Petzing, you know, they're all establishing what they want to do, language. I love it. It's awesome. I mean, it really is. I'm very curious to see what happens with it. AG's Burner says Gibbs in the pass game could be a big leap. We could see him get CMC or Bijan type targets. They actually asked Drew Petzing, Eric and Jeremy, about his 2 running backs on the field at once. I guess thoughts on that. And, you know, he didn't really give too much away with that, but he said you got to find a way to get your best players on the field, which I think I've heard that before. John Morton said that, but he didn't do it. You know, it's the difference between saying it and actually doing it. John Morton never did it. So I actually believe Drew Petzing. I don't know why. I just do. I tend to believe him more, that he's actually going to do it. Have Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery at the same time on the field. How do you not? Especially with the weapon Jahmyr Gibbs is. You can use him in the slot. He's incredible. He's a weapon in the passing game. Like, I agree with maybe that Christian McCaffrey can handle a heavy workload, and I just want to see that out of Jahmyr. I think that's his next step. If he's going to be a number 1 running back and get a ton of carries, we have to see it, how he can handle it through 17 games. I think last year we saw moments in the O-line, yes, not denying that. But David looked better at points with the same O-line later in the season. So, you know, Jahmyr Gibbs has to prove it in the run game, can he handle all those targets, all those touches? But he took another step in the pass game, and, you know, we all know the weapon he is. So I love it. Blitzing Lion, appreciate the $5, my friend. He says, it's sad ever since MCDC, the defense has always held this team back, 2023 especially. I agree. I agree that the defense has always held this team back, but part of that, you have to look at your head coach and your GM, of course, for what he puts on the field. But Dan Campbell, he's backed both Aaron Glenn and Calvin Shepard. So, you know, part of me, you know, I try to look at it a little sympathetically and be like, man, if they just had a good defense, what they've done on offense has been so incredible. Maybe they could have had more success. But then you ultimately look at Dan and go, well, you're the one making decisions on the coaching staff. So you got to look at Dan Campbell and question what the hell's been going on with this defense. Are you watching the Seahawks? Are you watching some of these other teams defensively? I don't know. Are you watching Even the Chicago Bears with Dennis Allen. Like, I know the Bears didn't have a lot of talent, but Dennis Allen, really good DC, got the most out of them. You saw that Rams game in the playoffs, had that defense playing really hard. Like, the Packers went and got Jeff Iafrate. They had a pretty good defense until Micah went down. And I know Calvin Shepard, you'd say, well, Calvin Shepard had injuries. Well, Micah Parsons is more, I mean, let's be real. He was the entire defense. It's like last year. It's like losing Aiden. Clearly, their defense was going to fall off a cliff. I'm not saying injuries don't matter at all, but I think the injuries, the Lions, I mean, you saw it two All-Pros. The Packers did not have two All-Pros on defense after Micah went down. That he was their All-Pro. He was that guy. Okay, he was that guy. And he got hurt. MC3 Whodad says it's not that they haven't tried with the defense, the investments haven't worked out. It's also true. Investments like, I don't know, Ennis Rakestraw, Josh Pascal, Levon Zerike, some of that stuff. Yeah, it's kind of backfired a little bit. And I don't think they're going to trade for Max Crosby or anything, but I don't know. Maybe you can go out in free agency and get some guys to join this defense on cheap contracts. I don't know. Maybe you can convince somebody, hey, you want to join a contender, or at least what we look at as a contender. Maybe you believe it is too. Come over here. Maybe they can convince Trey Hendrickson to take a big discount. You don't have to give up any draft picks for it either. That's why it's tough, man. Like, free agency is, and Brad says this, you use free agency to fill holes. That's what free agency is for, okay? You use free agency to fill holes, and you go into the draft, and you draft the best players. So when you have a defense that needs, more talent, you have great players, but you don't have nearly as much of a complementary defense as like the Seahawks, where they have guys all over the field that can complement each other. The Lions have great players, but they don't have a good unit entirely. Okay. Even when healthy, they still have liabilities. They still don't have an edge two, at least an edge two that can't defend the run. Their defensive tackles were bad. Derek Barnes, I'm sorry, he's a liability at times, especially when they use three linebackers and Derek Barnes has to it has to cover somebody. So, yeah, we'll see. Maybe Brad Holmes makes some adjustments. That's something you're paying attention to as well. I wanted to show you guys this, by the way. I just want to chop it up with you guys for a little bit. But here's what happened today. I saw this. Apparently, the Lions blocked Bruce Gradkowski from interviewing with the Dolphins to be their quarterback coach. Bruce Gradkowski is the current Lions offensive assistant, and he's a former NFL quarterback. We actually met Bruce last year at the Combine and talked to him for a little bit. He's from Toledo, so Lukas and him were from the same area. And we got to talk to him, and he kind of told us about his story and how he got to the Lions. It's an incredible story. He talked about how he kept sending Dan Campbell, like he would send him a Starbucks gift card and kind of just, he did it the right way. He really did. He fought tooth and nail to get in there and coach for the Lions and show Dan that he was interested, and he got it. And now look at his opportunity. He's done a really good job. So from giving Dan Starbucks gift cards to getting interviewed to be the quarterback coach, Detroit blocked it though. It says Gradkowski had a ton of success as an OC in the XFL with St. Louis and seems to be valued in Detroit as a rising coach in their building. I actually wonder if they've interviewed Bruce for the OC job. I wonder if they interviewed him. You have to wonder, right? They haven't announced all the interviews they've had. And I think Bruce Gradkowski could have been one of those. I think he's a really good coach. I do. He's a young guy, like the tweet says. You won't watch him. He's a former NFL quarterback. Played for Pittsburgh. Can't remember who else he played for. I only remember in Pittsburgh. But yeah, maybe he is the next rising head coach or rising offensive coordinator. Aegis Burner says, was Gradkowski with the Bucs as a quarterback? I actually don't know. Could have been. Let me see, actually. Was he with the Bucs? Yeah, he was. He was with the Bucs. He was with Pittsburgh his last year of his career. He was with Oakland, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Tampa. So yeah, shout out to Bruce, man. He's getting some love. They blocked it though. And I don't know, by the way, I don't know how the blocking stuff works. I don't know if they go up to Bruce and they're like, hey man, the Dolphins requested an interview. And he was like, nah, I'm good. And they're like, all right, we'll block it. Because I can't see Dan just being like, no, you can't take a promotion. I don't know. Or they're just like, you're not leaving the building, pal. You're too valuable here. Kind of curious on how that went down. But shout out to Bruce Gradkowski. Seems to be a rising head coach or a rising offensive coordinator, future offensive coordinator, maybe even possibly a head coach. Speaking of Dan Campbell, he commented on Drew Petzing. And here's what he had to say. He was asked why he hired Drew Petzing as the Lions offensive coordinator. He said, to be a really good coordinator, I think you have to know it all. All of it. You have to know the run game. You have to know protections. And certainly the pass game. True. He checks every one of those boxes, man. It was about somebody being detailed, having knowledge of it, man. I don't know where this quote came from, by the way. But this is, it's clearly sounds like Dan. And I've seen this elsewhere, so I just don't know where he exactly said it. But here's my thoughts on the whole Drew Petzing and him being qualified. You know what I love about Drew Petzing, by the way? And I mentioned this when I talked about what made Ben Johnson so valuable and what made him what made his transition offensive coordinator pretty comfortable is he's coached multiple positions on offense. Drew Petzing has done the same thing. Like, that's an underrated part of being an offensive coordinator. It's not as simple as just being like, hey, I played quarterback. I can call plays. I'm sure you can, but guess what? Drew Petzing and Ben Johnson, in a very similar fashion. Again, I'm not saying he's Ben Johnson, but what I like about the two is Drew Petzing's coached quarterbacks, wide receivers. I think he's coached tight ends. I know he's coached quarterbacks and wide receivers. Let me see. He's coached, tight ends, quarterbacks, tight ends, wide receivers, and he even coached a little bit on defense. So he knows the defensive side of the ball, obviously, if he's calling plays on offense. But that's what you got to like about the guy. I mean, he coached wide receivers, tight ends, and quarterbacks in a 3-year stretch. Bang, bang, bang. And then became the offensive coordinator for the Cardinals. So he got to learn every of those 3 positions, which tight end, by the way, something about being a tight end coach. Tight end's got to know a lot of things on offense. And he, speaking of being very detailed, he is. So I think that's just further proof of that. We could bring on Boone here. We could chop it up about some Drew Petzing. Boone, how we doing?
Doing good. Sorry. I was on here. There was like a little bit of news from the Lions, so I was tweeting it out here. So,
what was the news?
Bruce Gradkowski got requested an interview for the Miami Dolphins quarterback job. Yeah, I was driving home, and I just saw that, and the Lions denied the request. Our guy Bruce, man, crunch time friend.
Yeah,
was moving up in the ranks, and they denied him to do it. That's interesting.
I'm curious. I mentioned it. I'm curious if you interviewed for the OC job. If he's a former OC, they interviewed a lot of people. They just didn't.
What do you mean?
For the Lions OC job,
Bruce did?
No, I'm saying I wonder if he did, because they interviewed David Shaw. They interviewed a lot of people internally and externally that we don't even know.
I am interested. You know what? And this is just off my dome here. Something to think about is and who was it that you said? And I already know the name. I'm just little fun here. Who was it you said you think's out of the staff after this season? You brought up a name to me, and I said there's no way.
I don't know.
David Shaw.
No, I said I would get rid of him.
That's what I'm saying. So I said, who did you say? So you think David Shaw? What if there's a chance that Bruce Gradkowski gets a promotion this offseason? Obviously, we haven't seen the final offenses. We haven't seen the final staff of the Lions yet, because no one knows Mike Kafka's role. No one knows now Bruce Gradkowski. I mean, typically in the NFL, and people kind of know how this works. I mean, this is just in any business. For a guy like him who's looking to, move up. I mean, we talked to him for an hour and a half last year at the Combine, and he told us his story about how he just got to the Lions. It was incredible. But he obviously wants to keep moving up in the NFL coaching realm, right? Like, his obviously end goal is to be an offensive coordinator or a head coach in the NFL. And you would think that if he has an opportunity, he's an assistant quarterback coach, technically, or an offensive assistant, but he works with the quarterbacks. But you would think that if he has an opportunity to be the quarterback's coach for another NFL franchise, that Dan has been a guy, Jeff, that is very, very vocal of being like, we want to get our guys opportunities. So the fact that they declined and denied the request for the Dolphins makes you think that there's some sort of promotion in place for Bruce. And that's going to be something that's obviously going to probably be shared. I would expect. I wouldn't see like Dan. Has Dan ever denied? Maybe he has, but he's been very vocal about letting his coaching staff get opportunities elsewhere to move up in the ranks and go get opportunities that if they can't give to them. So I would think Bruce is going to get a promotion here in Detroit this offseason. And it's exciting for him.
I talked about it before you joined. I was saying the same thing. Dan Campbell he's not going to block an interview just because he feels like it. Something's obviously coming. I don't know what positions are even available on offense, to be honest. Did the tight ends coach, didn't they fill that position?
They did, yeah.
I don't know, like a passing coordinator, I guess David Shaw is doing that. So and Mike Kafka, we don't know his role. So to what you're saying.
There's still an opportunity that a lot of these guys leave too for OCs. Like there's still OC positions around the NFL that are open.
I guess, yeah, the Cardinals.
Raiders.
Yeah.
There's a handful. I would think the Dolphins. Do the Dolphins send an OC yet?
I think they hired Kevin Patillo to be the pass game coordinator, so I would think.
Maybe they did. Yeah, I do think there's some OC positions still open. So I mean, I'm not saying maybe Scotty Montgomery still has opportunities, and they're going to look for someone to replace him. I don't know. I would just think though, Bruce. In my mind, he's going to get an opportunity to get a promotion if they denied that request.
Yeah, I'm
interested for him to see.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, I want to show this clip of Drew Petzing. We'll get into it. Him talking about his offensive identity. He talks about what he wants to do on offense. And the biggest the biggest critique of Drew Petzing from Arizona media and fans is he doesn't really adjust or get the best out of his players. Here's what he had to say about his offensive philosophy and what he likes to do with his players. Let's take a listen.
Offense look like?
Yeah, I think the key to any offense is it's got to be built around the players you have, and you got to highlight their ability and what they do best. So that's going to be different game to game based on who's available. Every roster I've been on, it's going to be a little different. I've been very fortunate throughout my career to be around some great coaches who come from different backgrounds and different systems and have different beliefs. And I think I've taken a little bit, kind of from everybody in terms of how I want to build things and the language that I go off of and what I believe in. And then I think at the end of the day, the game comes down to the fundamentals, right? You got to be able to block, catch, throw, tackle, run. I think that's got to be at the forefront of everything you do from an offensive perspective. So I wouldn't say it's going to be this, it's going to be that. It's going to be what we feel like we're best at and makes us hard to defend. And I think that has to evolve each and every week you're in this league.
What is it?
Yeah, this is what I think about the whole narrative with him. In hearing his, listening to his interview and I think he put it really well. Not that he said this directly, but it seemed like I'm not even going to say he was saying it indirectly. I'll just say I'll say it, in my opinion. I think the problem in Arizona wasn't as much of a Drew Petzing just deciding not to utilize players. I think it had more to do with a lack of execution. I think that's what that offense failed to do. And that's not on Drew Petzing because I think he hinted at it by saying, there's situations where you're like, man, that was the right play call. It just didn't work out. And he kind of talked about that a little bit. I think that there's truth to that. I'm not saying he's perfect, but I'm saying when you look at Arizona, people are like, he just doesn't use Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson until this year. It took him 3 years. I think there's definitely, it's not all on Drew Petzing. I think there's more context to that.
Agreed.
For sure. I think in Detroit, when you have already established star all-pro players, it's not going to be a John Morton. We saw what happened when John Morton failed to utilize J-Mo, got his job duty taken away. So it's not like Drew Petzing's going to be like, blind pick, Amon-Ra, we're not going to target you this week. He's going to get these guys all involved. Yeah. For sure.
That's why I'm obviously I loved what I saw from Drew Petzing today or heard from him today. And I know that's obvious. And I do and I heard what you said, Jeff, a little bit. Really, hey, Boone's going to be really excited about this. Boone's going to be over the moon on this.
I know how you are with interviews. I know.
For sure. Well, I was literally getting my thought process when I heard you say that. I was literally going to come in here and be like, everyone in the world gets really way too excited when they hear a guy interview or talk for the first time. Like
remember
we all
Kelvin,
did.
I'm not saying he's Kelvin. Remember when Kelvin spoke? I was like, this guy.
Oh, I thought he was going to be the greatest thing of all time. Even when John Morton, when he spoke to the media last year at the Combine and they put it out, everyone in the world for a little bit was like, wait a second, maybe John Morton's something. Like maybe we got something. And I tried today to like take a step back and listen a little more directly and like have an open mind to be like, okay, Booner, let's not overreact on one. First off, like you said, as a human and as a dude, Drew Petzing's the best. Like he seems like I could see why Ben Johnson, you know, they were best friends. Like he's a dude that you just want to go have a beer with, and just hang out on a Friday night and watch football and talk ball all night. Like, and I'll say this as well. I can see how he got the Detroit Lions job. And Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, like those guys said when they talked about the Drew Petzing hire, they were like, or when I think Brad spoke with Dave Burkett about it at the Senior Bowl, where he was like, he just stood out. Like everyone we went back to that was in the interviews, Drew Petzing was the one that everyone was blown away by. You could tell by how he was answering questions with Jeremy and them and Eric that it was like, this guy is really like sharp. Like he's very dialed in. He's great at answering his questions. He's a very smart dude. And he does everything with intent. And I think like you can watch this interview and you can watch every single interview that John Morton did in Detroit, and there's a difference. John Morton was a little held back, a little like, you know, it passive?
He seemed more reserved. Like
and like at times he got defensive and you know, he didn't want to be open or this or that, where Drew Petzing's like, listen, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I like. This is what I'm about. This is, you know what I mean? And I love that. And to carry off of the clip that you just played there, the one thing that I truly loved about, and Drew Petzing, he kept bringing it up today. The one thing that I really loved is I saw someone tweet it out, and the adaptability of Drew Petzing, like what he's going to bring to the table with that. And he kept bringing up in today's interview, he kept bringing up like things are going to change week to week. This isn't going to be this is what we are, and we're going to be this, and it's only this. And it's like with John Morton, he was like, we want to get the ball to JMO down the field. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And that's going to be us every week. And then when you came across a legit defense, the offense was like, oh no, what's going on? We're doing the same thing that we did versus the Chicago Bears, or we're doing the same thing that we did versus this defense that's like a bad defense. It's like, wait a second. Where when Ben was here, me and you talked about this a couple of weeks ago, Jeff. Every week, there was a different offense essentially on the field. There's a different game plan. There's a different player that's going to be the focal point based off of what the defense and that team plays, right? And you're setting yourself up in week 2 for week 8, week 9. Drew Petzing like just keeps hammering that down. And I think that was something, at least for me, and I thought, you know, you were kind of on the same line. I thought that was something that I wanted to know in a new OC. Like someone who each week can, you know, if you need to be heavy in the run game, you can do that because this team's bad in the run. Or if you need to, you know, attack the pass game or attack, you know, a wide receiver 2 or a tight end because this team's bad at covering. Like adaptability, man. And he hammered that home a lot today, which really like that fired me up to hear that, because that was something that felt like maybe might have been missing from the John Morton offense. And then obviously with Dan takes over halfway through the year, so it's a little too late to adapt any sort of like, you know, change or philosophy like that. So that was the one thing, especially with that video you show, that stood out to me, that fired me up about him.
See, the great ones adapt week to week. That's how it is defensively and offensively. And there's a difference between saying it and doing it. Like I remember when John Morton was, well, even before him, Ben Johnson would say that. He would say something similar to that. Like every week, where it depends on who do we have at our disposal, who are we facing. You know, like that's what good OCs think. And then I heard John Morton last year say, like, he would never answer the question because they would ask him and he'd say, well, what's the defense giving us? Like, we have to see what the defense is giving us. Like, that was like his version of adaptability. But when you actually got to the games, like he wasn't game planning at as high of a level as I think Drew Petzing will be able to do.
Right.
Like there's a difference between saying I'm going to adapt and actually doing it and being good at it. Like I think Drew Petzing, being an offensive coordinator, obviously I have way more confidence than John Morton.
I've never been a coordinator in the NFL. We know that, right? Booner's never been an OC.
Yeah.
I've never been an offensive assistant, so I don't listen. This is a world. I'm gonna ask a question and make a statement that I might be so far off on. So I apologize in advance. When John Morton would do that, and he would be like, "Well, we have to get in the game and see what they're giving us." Maybe I'm wrong.
You have to get in the booth.
In the booth, yeah. Sorry, in the booth. Maybe I'm wrong, but like Ben Johnson, and it seems like Drew Petzing's the same way. They're not waiting to see what, and obviously, yeah, when you're in a play and you're whether you're checking to the next play or not, or killing to the next play, like, yeah, you're obviously going to see what the coverage and the blitz, the packages, all that are. But going into a game, when you have a game plan, if you're an offensive minded or an offensive coach like that, you want to make the defense adjust to what you're doing. No, am I wrong on that? And you know what I'm saying? Like, Ben Johnson's like, I've found over the last few weeks the weaknesses watching the film on this defense. I'm going to take advantage of those weaknesses, and I'm going to make them have to adjust out of that. And then when they adjust to fix those weaknesses, I have a game plan that's going to, that's when you make the adjustments in the second half. Now I'm going to attack with that, whatever they change. To where maybe John Morton was more so on the side of, let's just wait and see. Like, here's our game plan, and we'll see what they give us, and then we'll go off that. Instead of being like, we're going to be the aggressors offensively. We're going to be the one that's making you. We're going to make you force your hand. We're not going to force our hand based off of what you show us. We're going to make you do that to us. And it feels like that's what Drew Petzing, like, he was giving off that vibe today, where he's like, I'm going to be prepared every week, and we're going to have a game plan each week, different opponent, depending on what we're going into. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, never been an OC, so I don't know.
I think what you're saying, I get what you're saying. What Ben Johnson would do, and not, I hate using him. Let's stop using him. Like Sean McVay would do, or Clint Kubiak does, and these other good OCs do, is you run similar. You have the offense. The play looks similar. It's a different play. It's like Mike McDonald. Same thing on defense. Mike McDonald was giving the Patriots all these different types of blitzes, and then sometimes Devon Witherspoon, instead of blitzing, would drop back into coverage. They would switch things up. So Drake May doesn't know what he's seeing because it all looks the same, but it's different. That's what Ben Johnson did so well in Detroit. Is you'd have, they'd have some sort of like someone would be in motion and then it'd be a run, but then later in the game the same thing, someone in motion, but it's a play action, and then they're throwing the football. That's what good OCs do, because in the defenses, they're on their back heels all game. You didn't really see a lot of that creativity, a lot of motion, running different plays out of similar sets, like that stuff that high intelligent offensive coordinators do. Like, I think Drew Petzing will be able to do. I hope so. But like John Morton wasn't doing that. So to your point, he wasn't like making defenses he wasn't putting defenses on their back heels. Maybe against the Bears because they put up 50, but it wasn't like throughout. That's why he got his job taken away, dude. They lacked creativity. They weren't getting their playmakers involved. Like Ben found a way to do all that and feed everybody. So,
yeah, and Ben was just. It feels like Ben was just 2 or 3 steps ahead every game, right? Like he was going in with the game plan. And again, like I love that in my mind, like how my mind works a little bit. Like I love the analogy of just, it's like Ben Johnson made the defense chase him. You know what I'm saying? Like he was the one that was controlling the game, offensively, and he made the defense figure out what he was doing, to where it felt like John Morton was always just chasing the defense. And he was he watched a ton of film and he knew what to do in certain situations, but the game planning side of things versus good defenses might not have been there. To where with Drew Petzing, especially the fact too, like you alluded to, maybe like these players weren't coachable. I don't know what it was, but like with the brain that he has and what Drew Petzing brings to the table, like the staff that he has, first of all, is unbelievable. But second of all, unbelievable staff, and obviously you said like they're like right now. Now I'm not like they're probably. I was on the phone with you before the show started, and I said they might be in the building currently, like probably eating eating some pizza, and like we could just pull up to Allen Park and be like, hey, what's up, boys? Like, what are we watching today? Like they're literally probably there right now, figuring this thing out and working, which should fire people up. It really should.
Yeah, it should fire people up the way he spoke about Jared Goff, which is awesome. He's fired up. That's the main point of what I was talking about earlier with the lack of execution. He has never had this type of quarterback. And I'm not saying, Jared Goff's Tom Brady, but he's far better.
What's
than
crazy?
Kyler Murray and Jacoby.
Yes. What's crazy is every time like a new coach comes into this system with the Lions, like it's one of those things from like outside perspective, and it's the same thing with fans and even Lions fans. Like no one respects Jared Goff. Like there are not no one, because a lot of us do, but there's a lot of people out there that don't give him the credit that's due, right? And you see it like in those lists when the Sam Darnold, this whole thing that's came up. But we've seen countless times over the last 4 or 5 years, Jeff, new coaches go in and out of Allen Park, and every single one of them is like, when they comment on Jared Goff, they're like, it's actually they're like, it's shocking when you get in the building how elite
David
Jared
Shaw,
Goff actually is. Yeah, like these guys, it's just constant, like really high level offensive minds. They don't realize it until they get in the building. And then like today, he's like, I get to the building and he's like, I start actually breaking down what Jared Goff does. And he was like, it's insane. Like you just don't realize it being an opposing coach because you don't get to, you're focused on your team. But he's like, now that he's my teammate, like it's shocking how good he actually is and what he actually can do. Like once you watch the film, it's a game changer. I feel bad. I clipped the Jared Goff stuff. He talked 6 minutes about Jared Goff. I had to clip half of it.
Yeah.
I had to take half of it out because he talks so much and so highly of Jared Goff.
Yeah, he did. He spoke so highly of him, man. And he fits Drew. They fit each other's philosophy, like what Drew Petzing wants to do on offense, what Jared likes to do on offense, perfectly. It's like it's a perfect fit. Again, doesn't mean we still don't have to see Drew Petzing call plays, but philosophically, they are a to a T fit. When you see what Jacoby Brissett was able to do when he got the start in Arizona, the type of quarterback he is. Like he even said I don't know if it's in the clip or not, but he was like, I think even Jacoby would say like Jared Goff's better than me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like he's a better quarterback. So let's take a listen. This is Drew Petzing talking about Jared Goff.
He's been awesome. And he's as impressive as a quarterback as I've seen watching tape. I think a play caller as a coach, really at any position on offense, when you have a guy that sees the game the way he does, that can operate the way he does, the rhythm and the timing and the vision is really impressive. And then having the physical tools to then put the ball where it needs to be placed, to have touch, but also have some violence in his throwing motion. As you said, yes, he's a pocket passer, but he's made some great plays in the keeper game, on the move. There's just so many things that I think he does at a really high level that, again, it all goes back to what puts stress on a defense. And when a guy can see the field, check in and out of plays, get in and out of the huddle, like those are little things that I think get taken for granted at times that really make a massive difference in how an offense operates and the success of a team. And I think he's done that at such a high level for such a long time.
How much do you lean on a quarterback in your implementation?
Immensely, at a level that, and I think that has to be that way with whoever the guy, like in this case, Jared is going to have the ball in his hand. He needs to know the whys. He needs to know the intricacies. He needs to have a voice in it. And he needs to speak up when he will do a great job of that because I know him at this point a little bit. Like, I'm not comfortable with that. I don't like that. I want this. Do we think this is good? Like, hey, push me on this. And I'm going to. In a lot of ways, to me, a good quarterback play caller relationship, he's another coordinator on staff. He's another coach on staff because of how much time is required to play that position at a high level and how involved. Like we don't do anything without the quarterback touching the ball. So everything we do has to be based around his skill set, making him comfortable, allowing him to see the game the way that he thinks he sees it best. And then I can do some things and involve some things that hey, you haven't done this, but I think this is going to fit really well. Here's why, here's how. Let's take a look at it. Are you seeing this the same way I do? Let's take a couple reps of it. Oh, yeah, you're on it. Or, all right, hey, you're not feeling that. We got other ways to go. I think all of that is, kind of the ever-evolving offense that you guys will see on the field. But that relationship, that communication is as important as anything.
Now, I want to make sure I make something very clear. So, Rich, you know what he could have said? He could have just complimented Jared and been like, I'm excited to work with him. I watched a lot of film. He's a really good quarterback. You don't have to go for 6 minutes on the guy, okay? So I think it's not about he just has to say what he said. I think there's actually a liking between Drew Petzing and what Jared Goff can do. I mean, how can you not? I mean, how if you're Drew Petzing, look what you have had to deal with in Arizona. Josh Dobbs, Kyler Murray, and Jacoby Brissett, and you're getting someone who you just went through the stats yesterday or 2 days ago, yesterday. Jared Goff's like up there in passing yards, passing touchdowns the last 2 years. I mean, he's almost top of the league. He's like top 3 or top 2, whatever the actual number is. Why would you not be excited? He can actually see the field. In Arizona, you have Kyler Murray. He can't see the field. You can scheme anybody you'd like open. You need your quarterback to not only read the field, but get the football to those guys. And Jared Goff does that. And I love what he said, Boone. My favorite part about that whole the commentary there is John Morton did this too. Not in a bad way. It's a great thing for Goff. He is kind of like an extension of the coach, dude. He really is. I know quarterback is already kind of that type of position, but Jared Goff definitely weighs in on what he wants, obviously. I'm sure there's a lot of other things schematically he weighs in on, but having a guy like him, and these are what really intelligent quarterbacks are able to do across the NFL, is he makes his stamp on the offense, whether the offensive game plan every week or the offensive scheme through the season. But having Jared Goff is, I mean, I don't think, and I don't know, I'm just talking on my ass at this point. I'm just being honest. I don't know if anyone in Arizona was doing that. I really don't. Maybe Jacoby. I think Jacoby's seen a lot of football.
He's a vet, so he's probably talking, but it was like, what is he going to do?
Murray's like, hey, this is what we're... No, hell no.
Yeah.
So it's going to be nice.
I think, too, like, I think one of the biggest things for me was always with a new OC, especially, like, even when John Morton was coming in next year. And remember, one of the arguments I made positively towards John Morton was he was a part of that building the offense with Ben Johnson. Like they talked about how that one offseason a couple years ago, they sat in a room together and they all kind of sat there and developed a new offense that molded essentially around Jared Goff. That was something for me that I was always so big on with an OC, or especially with a guy like Jared Goff. Like I'm a massive Jared Goff guy, but there are all those people who push back on Jared Goff. And why is it? It's because he's not like the Josh Allen, the Lamar Jackson, the Patrick Mahomes. He does have a limitation on what he can do. And it's not a bad thing, right? Like you saw Sam Darnold just win a Super Bowl by being a pocket guy, and he can move a little, but being kind of a game manager. And the biggest worry I always had was someone to come in and try and make Jared Goff do things that he's just not good at. You know what I mean? And get away from play action or get away from going under the center and having him in shotgun majority of the time. Like that was always something that I was worried when Dan was hiring an OC. Like, is this going to be something we have to worry about? Drew Petzing, like that was something with even Drew Petzing that I was sitting there like, I'm waiting to hear from him to see if how he's going to approach that. Is he going to change the whole offense or what he's going to do? And I love the fact that, I don't know if you heard it there, Jeff, but like that he essentially said, like, we're molding it. Like, we're going to take what Jared Goff is great at and we're going to do that. And we're going to figure it out. And then and on top of that, what I don't know if John Morton didn't do this or not, but on top of that, he's like, and I'm also going to bring things to Jared Goff that I think that he would be good at. And I'm going to look at, obviously he's going to watch film and be like, hey, I saw you do this. And he's like, I'm going to bring ideas to Jared based off of what I see in the film. And I'm fired up to see what that, again, I'm getting into I'm doing this again, Jeff. I'm getting into the, I'm pumped up, but I think these things that he's saying, like, and I get a lot of people in the chat are going to be like, oh, well, like, oh, they're supposed to be saying this. This is like, you're going to get excited. Like the way he goes, like, I don't know. I don't want to be like the way he says it, but like, it gives you confidence because you do ask. And one thing like you say all the time is that you want to see it. Like in the offseason, you can't see it until we get to training camp. And even training camp, John Morton looked good offensively. And then you're like, well, you can't see it until you get to preseason. Well, they don't play you can't see it until September 8th or whatever the first game is going to be. That's first Sunday of September. And it's like, that's so long away. So you want to be able to at least hear positive feedback from these coaches, right, about this offense, especially after one just essentially flamed out. You want to be able to see that and hear it. And I would say so far, like Drew Petzing, first time speaking to the media, essentially, I would say 1 for 1 based off, especially when you're talking about the Jared Goff building an offense around a quarterback that essentially needs a perfect offense to be able to play at the highest levels, which you can do. You can play at an MVP level. I loved what I heard out of Drew Petzing and how he is going to approach working with Jared Goff.
Dude,
like that should give Lions fans confidence.
I agree. And of course you have to see him call plays. No, but to your point, all you can see right now is the human being. That's the only thing you can evaluate. And he is like, as a human being, he checks all the boxes. Like he does. He seems to be not only intelligent, and he says all the right things, which again can be interpreted as a bad or good thing, but I love it. A lot of what he said, I like. He said all the right things. I can see why the Lions like him. Okay. No one knows if he's going to work out or not, but we can't even talk. We don't even know because you have to see him call plays right now. Just evaluating the dude, he is already 1,000 times. And I'm not saying John Moran's a bad human being or anything, but you can see it. Put them next to each other and just their personalities. You can see why they like Drew Petzing so much. Like you can see that clearly, hearing him speak and talk about what he likes to do offensively. Like no one was listening to John Moran interviews and going like, yeah, this guy fired me up. It was mostly the argument was like, well, he was in the room with Ben. There's familiarity with the offense. No one was going, this guy as a human, like the dude I'm fired up about. Like I'm fired about the dude. So I don't think it's a bad thing to be fired up about, like the human being in Drew Petzing. Like that's fair. Dude, people that are skeptical are just, and I get it. Okay. You're hurt. I get it. John Moran he flamed out. I understand. Okay. And I understand the Anthony Lynn stuff. I understand why you'd be skeptical, but you got to admit, like Drew Petzing as a human being, and I know it doesn't matter, but that's all we have right now. He checks all the boxes. So I'm with you on that. It's hard not to be a fan of the guy. I want to get to the Monty stuff after Jeremy, because that stuff was great. What he talked about Monty. He also made a joke about Ben Johnson, said he's better looking, which by the way, you know what? The bald head is growing on me a little bit. I'm not going to the bald. I want to see. And he, you know what? He did mention, by the way, before we move
they have
on, what were you going to say?
Oh, so they just have a staff of bald heads.
They do.
Mike Kafka.
Yeah, they do.
Our guy Bruce, he bald head.
Yep.
I think if you're on that offensive staff, does Hank Fraley, how's his hair looking right now? David Shaw. They have a bald crew, dude.
I think David Shaw's bald. Yeah, he is.
Dude, they have a bald crew.
They do. And you know what? They did ask him about the booth and the sideline, which I loved. I loved that.
Thought that was all. And I think he honestly, I've actually never, I'm just being honest, like this is us just kind of learning as like we've been in this industry for a few years now, but like I'm always learning new things. I thought he answered that very interesting. Like, I don't know if do we have the clip of that?
We don't, no.
So he essentially said, and it was such a good, he essentially was like, I like to be on the field and I like to call plays, but he did say, he was like, this preseason, just so like, he essentially, it felt like he was warning people. He was like, I'm going to try the booth at one point in the preseason. Cause he was like, it could, like he said, it just depends on, style, with the team that you're with and different things. So he is going to try the booth out. My guess, after what happened last year, he's going to try that and be like, and the reason he said he likes the field too, which is literally what everyone was saying, was easier communication with the quarterback as soon as he gets off the field.
Yeah. Yes. And not only that, he said he feels sometimes when he's in the booth, he falls into watching the game. He feels like he's watching the game rather than being on the field with the guys involved. Like, not that he just, snoozes through the game, but I mean, if you're Johnny Moe up there, dude, watching the game, you're like, holy shit, I'm watching an NFL game from like I'm in like the booth. Like I'm in the, what do you call it? The suites. Like, I'm in the suites.
Did you ever hear the story that Dan O said?
No.
Where Dan Orlovsky said when he was in Detroit, he was the backup for a while and he had a headset. So he said back in the day, the headset, like the coaches didn't call it straight to the quarterback. They called it to the backup quarterback, and the backup quarterback had to relay the play in. And he said the OC, one of the OCs that he had in Detroit, he said he was on the headset with him, and he went to go call a play, and he said the OC was sleeping, fell asleep. You could hear him sleeping. So he had to call a play in on his own because the coach, he was like, he didn't get a play in. So Dan O was like, I had to get a play in. And he was like, you could hear him sleeping. That's like during the bad Lions days.
Hold on. Now I'm curious.
Yeah, how crazy is that?
Now I'm curious because he was.
And he also said that he had coaches. He also said he had like coaches call plays from their last regime wherever they coached before. So he like would hear a play call and would be like, "That's not our play. Like we don't have that play. That's a play from a different playbook you had." It's crazy, dude. Shout out Easy. Easy's the one that kind of put me onto that. I think it was Easy. I can't remember actually. I'm pretty sure it was Easy.
Yeah, Ted Toldner. He was the OC in 2005. I don't know if that was the season. That's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, It's better because it seemed with John Morton, it was David Shaw kind of being like this middleman.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of it. I don't like it. I like when he comes off the field, when you have like with Ben, they would just talk. Like I think it's better with Drew Petzing. They're just like talking, looking at the film, talking about it.
He gave up a couple points with it too. Like he was like, when I'm on the field, I'm on the sideline, I'm right next to the game event, like the play. And he's like, I'm right on the action to where he's like, I'm able to actually like read defenses easier when I'm down there. And he's like, I'm able to develop and read these a lot quicker and a lot easier than I would be up in the booth.
Yeah. Even for being 5'7", he's got a lot of heart.
Yeah, but no one's standing in front of him. He's standing at the front. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, he's leading in the front. He is. I mean,
he's the best though, dude. I'm excited too. I know we're having Jeremy here in a second, but I'm excited. Like the David Montgomery, I want to talk about that too later on in the show, because I thought that was such an interesting thought process. And I don't know if you got the feeling from it, but like the way he talked about D-Mont, and I know he's like, those conversations are things you have to ask Brad and those guys about, and Dan, they can comment on that, and D-Mont. But if I got a positive feeling from that, where he like wants D-Mont to stay. And my guess is like, there's conversations in the building to where you would think Drew Petzing has a little bit of like, obviously not full say, but he gets to have some sort of say on what his offense looks like. And if he's like, hey, Dan, I would love to have D-Mont here this year, I'm sure they would try and keep him and do everything they can. That's just my takeaway.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you want him? I mean, it's quite simple. Let's bring in Jeremy here. Covers the Detroit Lions for Pride of Detroit. The man, along with Eric, shout out behind the Drew Petzing interview, which gave us free content in the offseason. So, Jeremy, we appreciate the hell out of you. Jeremy Risman, how are you doing, Jeremy?
Doing well, fellas. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, we appreciate you for today. You guys crushed it.
Killed the interview. That was a fantastic interview.
Voice of the people. A lot of the things you guys talked about in the interview were, I mean, not only questions but discussions revolving Drew Petzing. So to hear him address all of it, it was awesome. I know you mentioned you didn't get to everything, but I think you got. I mean, all the things we talked about, relative, all the important topics. Which I do want to ask you.
Sure.
What was kind of your, I guess, first? I don't know if it was your first impression or just your impression of Drew Petzing, because a lot of the talk around Drew has just been speculation for the most part, and I'm part of the reason as well. I mean, I'm trying to get a vibe or a feeling of Drew Petzing from Arizona media. Big mistake, terrible mistake. I mean,
right.
Because they're only gonna feed you bad stuff, and you're trying to make sense of it. You're watching film, you're like, okay, I can see why the Lions like him. Actually getting a chance to speak with him, what are some things that you learned new or things that were confirmed that you kind of knew about Drew before?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing that really came to mind for me was like, okay, I understand why we got this opportunity. I understand why the Lions wanted to put him out there in maybe like a non-traditional, stuffy press conference, because he's got personality, because he can talk ball, because he can be, funny and have like a conversational tone rather than question answer, quite like a different guy, quite like he can hold a conversation with one or two people for a long time. And I think even just looking at some of the reactions over the past, 6-7 hours here, everyone see like the overarching thing that I see from commenters on YouTube or whatever are all just like, this guy isn't John Morton, that's for sure. And listen, I think that might be one of the things that the Lions probably wanted to get out there, that like he isn't just kind of this stuffy guy. Now, does that mean he's a good offensive coordinator or not? We'll see. But yeah, I mean, it was very enjoyable to talk ball with him. I think you could kind of see the intelligence come off there. And more importantly, I think as it comes to, how he'll do in Detroit, I think he was able to explain kind of complicated processes in a very colloquial, conversational way that shows that he can be a pretty darn good communicator when it comes to teaching all the things that he's doing. So those were kind of my main takeaways just from, chatting with him for 30 minutes today.
Yeah, Jeremy, I do want to ask you, like, going into it, obviously we all have some sort of thought process and what we think the offense is going to look like with him at the helm. After hearing maybe some different things with schematics and, what he thought about Jared Goff, D-Mont, all those different sorts of things. The offensive line, you guys talked about a little bit as well.
Sure.
What's your confidence level now a little bit? I know the biggest thing we keep seeing from people in our chat is like, we want to see it. And I tell people, like, we're not going to see it until September, but you can still get takeaways from it. What was your takeaways like for his offensive scheme that, maybe feel a little bit better about it, or kind of going away from that with that interview?
Yeah, I mean, anytime we kind of dug into like schematic stuff, he mostly kind of deferred to, hey, we're gonna see what it looks like when we get a better hand on our talent. We want to make sure that we're building around our talent. And generally speaking, I think that's good news. It is something that pretty much every coach will say is like the players dictate the scheme and things like that. But what I found interesting was that he brought up two examples of, kind of organically brought up these two examples of him doing exactly that, which was his first year in Arizona in 2023 when he came into the team, first time offensive coordinator was like, we're going to run a bunch of outside zone. And then, they get into training camp and they suck at it. And he's just like, you know what? Maybe we're not doing a lot of outside zone. Maybe we're going to lean into some other things and make sure we're doing what's best for our offensive line, what's best for running backs. Hey, James Conner's pretty good. Why don't we lean into that guy a little bit more? And then he talks about the 2025 season where, all the injuries hit in the first month of the season. They've established this identity of being a run power team for the first 2 years that he's there. And then, they lose James Conner. They go through a bunch of offensive line injuries. They go through an injury at quarterback and you're like, you know what? We're a pocket passing team now. And they did that down the stretch. Now you also have to look at how they did. And, 2025 wasn't a good year. They managed to keep their head above water offensively a little bit. Not much was happening defensively to help them out. So, it's one thing to change course and show adaptability, but you also have to be good. And that's something that, we'll have to wait and see. Obviously the roster is going to be a lot better here in Detroit, but just hearing him talk about that adaptability, talking him about building a scheme around players, and then actually bringing up examples of him doing exactly that, to me, that was something that was pretty encouraging.
And I want to give credit to this point to shout out to Justin Rogers. He brought this point up on Lions Collective, and I guess I never really thought about it. And now it's so true hearing Jared Goff speak about Drew Petzing, looking at Drew Petzing's kind of background. I think John Morton, there's no doubt he knows offense. I think the takeaway for me is John Morton's a grinder. He's just an absolute grinder who got to where he is because of his work ethic. And I think Drew Petzing's the same way. But you can see the intellect with Drew Petzing. Like he's a very smart guy. Not saying John Morton's not, but there seems to be this common theme with like Jared Goff, another guy, Cal Burke, very intelligent guy. Ben Johnson, very intelligent guy. They had a lot of success. Jared said it at the Pro Bowl. Like Justin Rogers said that. And I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. And then I think like 2 weeks later, Jared Goff mentioned how smart the guy is at the Pro Bowl. And I'm like, okay, there is a truth to this. I think Jared, there is something in Jared being able to be challenged intellectually and being able to talk, offensive football with someone like Drew Petzing, who seems to be a super bright guy. Do you think there's truth in that where, Jared, Drew being as bright as he is, there seems to be more of a, there would be a better relationship between the two, or maybe those two guys can work together more in an efficient way than John Morton. Is that a fair takeaway to kind of assume there?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know how those interpersonal relationships are going to develop. You can be a lot smarter than one or the other, but like if you communicate that in a tough way, then maybe the relationship doesn't meld. I think part of the reason why you thought that John Morton was going to work in Detroit is because he already had that previous working relationship with Jared Goff when he was the offensive assistant in 2022. And I'm not here to say that like that broke down. I have no idea if it broke down. I don't know if he didn't, mentally stimulate him enough or whatever. But I'm with you that like at least publicly, it seems like Petzing is a little bit more willing to talk ball, willing to talk schematics, willing to talk about X's and O's stuff than John Morton ever was. I mean, John Morton communicating with the media was never one of his strong suits, and that was something that was pretty obvious early on in his career. But you never know if that matches what's happening behind the scenes. So it's hard for me to make assumptions on how that relationship with Jared Goff is going to look compared to what it did with John Morton. But I will say, yeah, the observation that Petzing seems like a really smart young guy, which is, the gold standard of offensive coordinators. It's the one thing everyone wants is, and I say youth because I'm a little bit older than him. So I want to say that that's young. But yeah, like I came away very impressed with his intellect and again, like his ability to communicate that intellect in a way that made sense.
Hey, I would like to say as well, young guy as well, Jeremy. We'll roll with young guy. And I will say too, Jeff and I, when John Morton got hired, one thing we always brought up, and not saying John Morton isn't a smart guy, but we always brought up like some of these offensive minds in the NFL right now are just like dialed in, like smart. Like he obviously coached at Harvard for a year, Boston. Like some of these guys that are the highest of the high offensive minds, man, they're smart offensive minds, like very smart intellectually. So I'm with you on that. Can I also ask you? I want to bring up the David Montgomery stuff because he did comment on that. I would like to know your thoughts on how you felt that he answered that with the Demont thing, because I took it as like feels like he wants him in there, which what offensive mind wouldn't want a guy like David Montgomery,
Right.
And then also like your side of things, like what do you think happens with the David Montgomery stuff? Because this feels like this might end up being like, it's crazy that the RB2 position is going to be one of the biggest topics of discussion this offseason for all of us in the Lions world. But it seems like that's kind of the trend right now is David Montgomery's offseason is going to be pretty interesting. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, I mean, he was certainly very complimentary of Montgomery, called him a 3-down back, very clearly said like he can do everything just like Jahmyr Gibbs can do, which I think it's important for David Montgomery to hear that. I think, I don't know if I'm not vain enough to think he was listening necessarily, because I'm sure everything he said on that podcast he said to David Montgomery himself, but I think David wants to not only be valued, but I think you've even seen him occasionally get a little like ticked off if someone calls him a power back, because he thinks he's so much more of that. And honestly, he is. So I think he's hitting all the right points in trying to kind of swoon Montgomery, because I think that's where the team is currently at. I think the team really wants him back. Everything that we heard from Brad Holmes seems to suggest that. Dan obviously gushes about his work ethic and calls him the heartbeat of the team, things like that. And now you have Drew Petzing talking about everything he can bring to the team. And so it's just a matter of convincing David Montgomery himself that he is going to be valued. He is going to be used, that if you say he's a 3-down back, you're going to occasionally use him like a 3-down back and not just as a guy who closes out a game or things like that. And so the Lions will have some convincing to do, it certainly sounds like, but based on some of David Montgomery's comments last week at the Super Bowl at Radio Row, it certainly seems like they've made some progress there. And as for my opinion, like I'm of the opinion that this team should not be in the business of creating any more additional holes than they currently already have, with the limited cap space, with the limited draft picks, only 2 top 100 picks, and already kind of, a lot of questions on the offensive line, linebacker, defensive end, safety. I don't think this team should be making any, extra holes that they don't have to. And considering trade value of a 30-ish year old running back is relatively low already, and the cap savings are just kind of minimal, I think the Lions should be doing what it appears they're doing, which is convincing Dave Montgomery to stay in any way they possibly can.
Jeremy, I mean, I want to ask you about the restructuring stuff, because I mean, if you go online, apparently the Lions can free up like $500 million if you just restructure. So everything's okay. Cap's fake. I just learned that today. But what have you kind of thought just about approaching free agency in a couple of weeks? I know Jared Goff's assuming going to restructure, but how do you think the Lions kind of approach? Because you can't restructure people. This is why I love talking to you about this, because people don't really understand how restructuring really works. They just see the money freed up, but they don't see what happens to, it makes like Myles Garrett had like 40 years of dead money because they restructured him so many times. What do you expect the Lions to do in terms of restructuring? Just kind of your thought process. And is it realistic to expect $100 million just to open up like that?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And the key point there is that restructuring money a contract doesn't mean you get rid of cap space. It just means you move it. There's no money being disappeared. It's just kicked down the can. And they obviously have to do something because they're projected to be over the cap because of ways that they've restructured contracts already, some of the re-signings they've made. But Jared Goff to me is the one that's a no-brainer. I mean, a $55 million salary is you put that there essentially to restructure it. You can free up a little bit over $40 million if you want to. I think the Lions might kind of do the max restructure there, just because he's a guy that is going to be around for the next 2 years on his contract. He's a guy that is pushing towards the end of his career. So if at one point they want to take the rest of those dead caps that they're pushing down the future into the future, where maybe you're playing on a rookie on a rookie contract, it would make sense. But everything that this franchise has been saying for the past 5 years is they want to be one of these consistent teams that's constantly winning, that's constantly in the conversation, because that's maximizing their chances to win a Super Bowl, is just to stay as relevant as long as possible. And I know this year didn't go as much as they wanted to. And in a lot of ways, like, there's nothing you can do to guarantee a certain level of success. You know, the NFL will laugh at you if you try to do that, because injuries will happen, tough schedules will happen, unexpected things will happen. You'll get bad calls from refs, all that sort of thing. But all that to say, I do think Brad Holmes is going to take a relatively measured approach again in free agency. I think there might be a little bit more of an urgency just because of what happened last year, and because they have a little bit, more holes on the roster than I think they did in last offseason. And because what Brad Holmes generally likes to do is to take care of all of his needs in free agency, and then kind of approach the draft however the board falls to him. So he's going to have to do more than he normally does, I think, in free agency. And so, in addition to Jared Goff, we might see one more contract restructured, but you're talking about like maybe creating $50 million in cap space, half of that number. And even that seems like a pretty generous estimate. I think in general, the Lions are just going to put themselves in a position to maybe make a relatively big strike or two in free agency, and that's about it. But we'll see. Brad Holmes has also said several times that his strategy could possibly change as the Lions' situation changes.
All right, Jeremy, this is such a random question, and I don't know if you were expecting to answer this, but every day I wake up, I have a different, thought process that goes through my mind with the Lions. And today it was the safety room. And I could not stop thinking today about Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph. And I started just quite frankly, just worrying a little bit about the knee situation with Kirby. And then obviously the Achilles with Brian Branch. Do you see them like, because today when I was thinking about it, I started thinking Caleb Downs, all these different things. Do you see them making some sort of splash at the safety position, or do you think they're going to take like a more of cautioned approach, with Thomas Harper and then maybe, a lower level guy, Avonte Maddox type of guy for the safety room or something like that, a vet? Or how do you see them approaching that? Because it feels like this is like a position group that we're all like, hey, it's a really good room. But then there's injuries. It's like, wait a second, there actually might be a little bit of an issue over the next year or so. And no one's really, I feel like a lot of people haven't talked about it. What do you think on that?
No, I think it's honestly one of the more fascinating decisions the Lions are facing this offseason, because there's just so, from our end, there's so much unknown, right? Like there's plenty of speculation around Kirby's knee, whether it's a cartilage issue. If that's the case, then it's really bad news. If it's something different and you follow the Jordan Schultz tweet from 3 months ago that says this isn't going to affect him long term, then it's rosy and he'll play all 17 games next year. And it's really hard for me to try to predict what they're going to do without the truth available to myself. But I think what is probably undeniable at this point is, I don't think there's an expectation for Brian Branch to be ready at the beginning of the season. So at the very least, the floor of what they have to do this year is get one guy who they trust to start the season right away, maybe a guy that could start for them for an entire season. And so whether that is an Avonte Maddox, I think he's a smart guy to bring back that'll come back relatively cheap, that I thought played some really darn good football. And then I'm a big Thomas Harper fan. I think that was one of the more savvy pickups from Brad Holmes last year. He's only 2 seasons deep in his NFL career. He played a good year in Oakland or wherever they play now, Las Vegas now. Yeah. But with the regime change there, he just didn't fit as much as they should have, and as he probably should have. And we all know what happened with the coaching staff there in Vegas. So who was right, who was wrong? So I don't know. I don't know if that, bringing back those 2 guys is enough. I wouldn't be surprised if that's all I do. I would be a little bit surprised if they went safety with one of their first 2 picks there, or made a splash in free agency. But if they did, then that would probably tell us a lot about the future of someone like Kirby Joseph. So safety is very important to them. Don't get me wrong. We saw them run some 3 safety sets back in the day. I mean, Ifeatu Melifonwu, also a free agent. Maybe you bring him back and now you just have a 3-way competition for a potential starting spot, maybe 2 starting spots, while you kind of shake out what's going to happen with Branch and Kirby. But I would be a little bit surprised if they went out and made a splash move this offseason at safety.
Well, we appreciate you, Jeremy. You guys, please go check out the Drew Petzing interview. Pride of Detroit's on their YouTube channel. Check out their articles as well, and give Jeremy a follow at Detroit Online if you're not following him already. Jeremy, we appreciate the hell of you, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Of course, man. Absolutely. It sounds good, man.
There you go. Jeremy Risman joining the show, talking some Detroit Lions, the Drew Petzing interview, which, again, we still have more clips to play for you guys. By the way, Booner, we have important business going on right now. So Booner's handling it. The NFL Combine's coming up, so he'll be right back. It's a good reason to disappear for a couple of minutes. We're cooking things behind the scenes for the NFL Combine. All right, let's move on here. Let's talk about the salary cap and the Lions' ability to restructure. Booner's
Sorry about
us.
that. Business calls. We had some business conversation. Yeah. Oh, Scoff, a good phone call.
We're trying to cook here. We're trying to cook here. Let's get to the Dave Montgomery stuff so we can we'll play some of these clips. I got two from Drew Petzing, one talking about the run game and the other talking about Dave Montgomery. So first, I'm going to play him just speaking about the run game and kind of what they want to be able to do. Actually, we'll start with Dave Montgomery and then we'll get to the run game. Here's Drew Petzing speaking about David and how they'll be including David.
There, obviously watched him play in this offense for a number of years and think he brings a lot to the table. A lot like Gibbs, he's a dynamic back who can affect the game with the ball in his hands. He's really a 3-down back. There's not a lot you're going to look at him and say he can't do this or he can't do that. So that's all I said. Hey, I'm excited to work with you. I can't wait to get you in the building. I know there, and that's kind of where I'm going to leave it. And then, I'll let those guys talk on anything else kind of as it pertains to that. But again, he's a guy you're excited to work with because of the nature of who he is, how he carries himself, and how he plays the game. There, obviously watch him.
How do you not be excited? David. And honestly, like David, if we're being honest, and I think James Conner is a good running back. I think Dave Montgomery is probably in the same tier as James Conner. So
agreed.
It's like you got James Conner plus a top 3 back in the NFL. So talk about what he's actually walking into from just the backfield perspective. Like James Conner struggled to stay healthy. But before David was in Detroit, he's an 1,000-yard back. That's what he is. He's an RB1. He would start on a lot of teams in the NFL. And I just, it's hard for me to imagine the Lions do move on. I'm sure like every team takes, like people would be surprised. A lot of teams will take calls on players that maybe you wouldn't expect them to take calls on, but they don't trade them. Like the Doc's report about the NFL executive talking about Dave Montgomery and the NFL Combine. I'm sure guys are going to talk to Brad and be like, hey, what about this? What about this? They're going to talk, but they're not going to trade David. I don't see it. And I think he ends up staying in Detroit. I do.
I agree. Yeah, I think everything that he said today about David, and I know a lot of people we did hear. I feel like that's something we really did hear a lot last year, and even mid-season from Dan, being like, yeah, we want to get him involved, and they just kept refusing to involve him, which is really weird. But Drew Petzing, obviously, hey, like I don't know if we had it in that clip there. I know I had to cut some of it off as well, but really more so just talking about, we're going with the two running backs, even at the same time, and understanding like, hey, we have another weapon here. And the most interesting part about it all, and this is the thing that I think a lot of people kind of gloss over a lot, especially with running backs, like look at Seattle. Charbonnet's the one that gets hurt, but all year long, Charbonnet's taken, part of that workload off of Kenneth Walker. And Kenneth Walker was probably one of the freshest players in the NFL playoffs because they had a split backfield. And they had two really good guys. Like Charbonnet, arguably, like as much as people don't want, he could be a starter on lower end teams in the NFL. Like he's a very good back, and you get that same sense with the David Montgomery stuff. And Petzing actually brought it up today, which I love because I don't know if this was something that we heard last year, but of the fact of, hey, we want to take some of the load off of a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, and yeah, he's one of the best players in the NFL, but how can we save a guy like him and David Montgomery for a 4 or 5 month season instead of just running them into the ground, having them for 2 months and then you're done? And I think that's something that, they're going to try and figure out. And I think that's, again, I understand people trying to find different ways on this team to save money, but at the same time, it's like, hey, with DMOT, what you save less than $10 million, is it worth the production? And I think Jeremy said it perfectly, Jeff. Why try and create more holes on a team that already has a handful of holes? It's like, why? Like, what are we doing here? And I think there are other position groups where it's like, hey, you can you know, the restructure, this, that. Maybe the Taylor Decker thing, something that, hey, it's like that is technically creating a hole, but you also have a first-round pick with some really good talented tackles in this draft. Where in this draft class, I even saw Albert Breer, one of the best in the game, tweet out today, Jeff, and was like, this running back draft class is not what people think it is. He was like, I watched the film. Doesn't feel like it's as heavy of a running back draft class. And it's like, hey, is that a year you want to be able to be like, let's move on from D-Mont? No, it's probably not. And to Jeremy's point, you don't want to create a hole. And I know Doc's like draft the running back. In a bad running back draft class, I mean, how many running backs can you name in this draft class? Jeremiah Love?
Yeah,
last year we can name 20.
Guys, yeah, that's not like it's bad. I've seen that a lot more than people are comfortable talking about. So I don't think they should go after a running. I mean, if you want to take a flyer, whatever, but they shouldn't draft the Dave Montgomery replacement this year.
Yeah,
I don't think that's because you're not going to
really,
unless it's like the last pick in the draft. But you're not taking a guy in the top like 4 rounds to replace Monty. I just don't see it. But we never know. Brad, they draft on best player available. Maybe they think a running back's the best player available. But based on the draft class, I would probably disagree with that. There's draft classes over the last couple of years where there's been a lot of really good running backs. So maybe next year it'll be a better running back class. I'm not familiar, but it'll be better. But I'm with you. It just doesn't the values. It doesn't make sense from the Lions' perspective. Maybe from D-Mont because he gets to go to a team where he'll be a number 1 running back. But from the Lions' perspective, it's like, okay, you trade D-Mont. You don't have a guy like the guy average. I keep saying last 6 games, 5 yards a carry. Are you going to get 5 yards a carry coming out of the draft? You could. You know what I'm saying? You could. That plays like D-Mont, which perfectly complements Jahmyr Gibbs, and they have a great relationship, and he understands the offense, and he's a 3-down back. You could. It's not likely. I mean, it just isn't. He also spoke about the run game. So let's take a listen to his thoughts on just his philosophies running the football, and we'll react to it.
Look, like we're not going to completely depart from anything that they've done really well. There's things that I want to introduce that I think we're going to do well. I don't want to talk about them until they show up on tape, unfortunately. But I think it all does come back to kind of that core philosophy. At the end of the day, running the ball is an attitude thing. And it's about moving people off the line of scrimmage. It's about putting the ball in the hands of your best player or one of your best players as often as possible to affect the game. And I think they've done a really nice job of that. And I think I certainly want that to continue. And I'm hoping that, you know, as to your point, I can bring some wrinkles that make that even more effective and maybe unlock a couple things. Look, like we're not going to completely depart from anything.
That's the stuff I just like hearing. Again, it's all
the run game, dude.
Yeah, it's just him talking about, well, we're not going to get away from the things that work here. You know, again, there's a difference between saying it and doing it. John Morton said that didn't really work out that way. So I think Drew Petzing's expertise in the run game, and then you have Mike Kafka's expertise in the pass game, gives you a reason to be more optimistic and excited. Like,
well, what was something that we felt like this year was, and obviously it's offensive line that people were a little down on, but the one thing this last year that like offensively in those third quarters and those times where it was like really like, hey man, like you have to end this game or your offense is, it was like you couldn't run the ball, dude. You could not figure out ways to run the ball, and John Morton couldn't figure out. And what was last year? Everyone kept saying, what is John Morton? What's his specialty? Passing. Like he's good in the pass game, right? John Morton is very hot. Dude, Drew Petzing, like he's very good in understanding the run, and that's like his thing. It's like, hey, I'm gonna implement this. The fact that he's like, hey, we're gonna keep what you guys do really well in the run game, but I'm also gonna add my little bit of a touch to it. And I think like I honestly, I know people, this is one of those things, again, you have to see it. I don't think this is a thing where you have to see it. I think it's actually fans should be excited to see the Drew Petzing little sprinkle of the run game of Drew Petzing, because I actually did watch some of the James Conner runs and some of these schemes that he had done. I saw some people posting them, some film, and I was watching them, and it's actually a little like, wait a second, that's something that we haven't seen in Detroit in like a couple of years since Ben was here. Like we didn't see that last year. How is that hole so big?
okay, there's another one. It's back to back. That's 2 days in a row now.
But how? And it's like, wait, how is the Arizona Cardinals offensive line opening such a massive hole there? And the Lions offensive line last year couldn't do that. But 2 years ago they could. It's like, oh, maybe that's scheme. That's schematics, man.
Yeah. That is.
So I'm excited to see that out of Drew Petzing.
Yeah, it's scheme, and it's it's looking at your running backs and, seeing if they have the vision and the patience, if you have better running backs, you're going to have more success. There's no doubt. So having Jameer and David is going to help out Drew Petzing, obviously. Like, they need a new left tackle, assuming that Taylor Decker, retires. New center, you piece this thing together. Like, Hank Fraley is someone also that Drew Petzing's worked with in the past. So they already have a relationship. So yeah, it's fair to be excited with that. So I hope Demont stays. I really do. Again, I'll say it again. I think it'd be stupid if they just decide to not keep him, but we'll see. I don't know. Doc is, we love Doc. He's opinionated. He has his own opinions. He would rather just find his replacement in the draft, which, by the way, typically I am with him. I think for the most part, I have no problem drafting running backs, but in this situation, it's not like to save a couple mil. I'm not
sold, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not sold.
If he was a free agent, then it's like, yeah, go draft his replacement. But like, he's under contract at like $8 million, and you just want to cut him to save like a couple mil. What? No, I'm cool with that.
That's why I think like people are just trying to scrape money around because they want Brad to go just absolutely nuts in free agency. And it's like, hey, dude, like that's not realistic. Honestly, I think what's more realistic if they were going to get rid of David Montgomery, that the reason they do it would not be to just save money. I think the reason they would do it is because David Montgomery's like, hey, I actually want an opportunity to carry the ball 15 times a night. Like I would like to go do that. And David tells them that. Do you know what I mean? Like that's how I would think that this thing goes down. If there's a world where David's like, hey, I want an opportunity somewhere else so I can get more, more touches. I don't know if I don't know. I'm starting to fall towards the camp of, I don't think Brad would just move on from Demont just to save some money. I just don't think that would be a thing.
Yeah.
I see where, obviously, I mean, you can look at almost every contract on the team. If you cut a guy, there's probably some sort of money you save.
By the way, I want to show the graphic I was going to show.
I was just about to message you on the side, say we should do that next.
Yeah, here's the restructuring potential for all the NFL teams. I saw this graphic came out, and all this basically indicates is all the potential restructures. You could free up $128 million. Okay.
Yep.
But the reality is you're not going to restructure and free up $128 million. That would be absurd because, like Jeremy said, people think restructuring means that money just disappears. No, it does not. It definitely does not. You might do it with quarterbacks because he's not going anywhere, but it's not as easy as just freeing up money. I think like what Jeremy said, he said 50 mil might even be aggressive, but probably under 50 mil, somewhere in that ballpark. It's we don't really know. But they are going to free up money by restructuring Jared Goff and, try getting rid of like Taylor Decker and all these guys. But I don't think it's going to be 120. If it's 123 million, we're going shopping.
Well, I would say, and if you do that, you're telling the fan base, and you're essentially just putting a big neon sign outside of Allen Park and being like, we're all in on 2020. It's Super Bowl, or we have to rebuild our whole thing in 2 years. Like, because dude, you're essentially like pushing all those contracts over the next 4 years, 5 years. You're not going to be able to go out in year 2 or 3 with all that money. Like you're in a hole at that point. I think the Saints did that at one point. I think the Browns have done that. I think you mentioned that with Myles Garrett, and like you get in these holes where you're like, oh, like you're in a spot. But I'm with you.
All it does is just add cap hits down the line.
Years down the line, yeah.
The bill's going to come due eventually. Like you don't.
But I'm with.
Yeah, go
every team, like, well, I would say all these teams that are in, like, because you see all these teams in negative, like, these teams don't have like the Lions don't have they have to restructure some people because you can't go into free agency with negative money. You can't.
No,
you have to at least be able to have an opportunity to build and produce a roster. So it's inevitable that there's going to be restructures. My thought process on it today that I thought about it, Jeff, is especially seeing how much money is here, is what players do you think, like if you're going to restructure a guy, and everyone says this about Jared Goff, you're locked into him for that time, right? Because you push it down the line, like it's hard to get rid of that deal at that point. You're locked in. And it's the same thing with any of the, like Aleem, Amon-Ra, Panay, like some of these Kirby, like some of these big contract guys. if you're going to restructure a player, you have to be comfortable knowing that you trust him to be around and playing at a high level for the next, 4 or 5 years, right? Like you have to.
Yep.
I would say Jared Goff is one of those guys. And the only other person that I would say is yes on that is either Amon-Ra or Penei Sewell. So, like, I know I put a tweet out today about Ali McNeil's contract, which I don't know if you saw this, Jeff. Ali McNeil in 2026 has the 13th highest cap hit among all defensive players in the NFL. 13th highest cap hit. And there were people in my comments, like, and I even said it too, like maybe they restructure, maybe they look. After that, I start thinking about it, like, that's probably just not a deal you want to restructure because you have an out after this next year. And if you can just get through this next year of paying him $28 million and taking the hit, you can opt out of the deal, pay $15 million dead money and move on. Right. Like, but because that's someone that you're not like, we have to have Aleem for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Penei, though, you need Penei the next 5 years. So like you take his deal and you restructure it and you lock him in long-term here and you move that money down the line. Same with Amon-Ra. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So those are the three guys. I think those are the only three I think you would actually see like legit restructure.
What if they like restructure some guys and then like pay like El-Quadin Muhammad and like Anzalone or something?
I guess it depends. Well, if you restructure like Jared Goff, you open 40 mil. So like you could
AQM gets 30.
Yeah, that would be nuts, dude.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, even like Amon-Ra, I don't know if he'll. I mean, that's another guy. Like some of those guys, you could restructure because they're.
I think players like to restructure. I'm pretty sure when you restructure, you get cash straight up. Like it turns into a signing bonus, so you get like cold hard cash up front.
Yeah, which I think that is the case.
So like if you call Jared Goff and say, "Hey, we're trying to free up 40 mil," I don't know if you get all 40 right away, but he's going to get some sort of signing bonus for the restructure, and it's like, here's liquid cash.
It says signing bonuses are prorated evenly over the remaining years of the contract. So maybe every year their signing bonus goes up or something. I don't know, or they get more money. I don't know how that works.
All I know is it frees money up and cap.
Yeah, players. I mean, it's not like it's good. They're not making any less money or anything. I mean, it doesn't change. It's just it's flexibility for the team. So that's really all it is.
It really comes down, and I think Tim said I just saw one. I didn't see any other chat from him, but because our chat's all messed up. But I did see something about. All I see is she doesn't pay the bill, then you know she's not coming. I'm guessing he's talking about Sheila Hamp, because Sheila is the one that when you do restructure, you have to pay probably a lot of money. Like you got to have the cash up front, man. So. If they want to restructure, open up, Sheila's gonna imagine being an NFL owner. Just every offseason, you're just having to pay hundreds of millions in cash, whether you give a guy an extension or free agency, like all these signing bonuses. Like here's a $30 million signing bonus. Just check here. That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, I don't. Well, Matt says yes. They turn salary into signing bonus so it can be spread out over the contract. I mean,
so I think they get the money straight up, but then it spreads the so like say he gets a $40 million signing bonus, they'll take that 40 million, they'll give him the cash, they'll take that 40 million and spread it over the next, like, let's say 5 years, 40 divided by 5, boom, 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 or however they want to spread it out. So they'll essentially do that. They'll probably put a lot of it on the back end and you'll have to restructure again.
Yeah, Myles Garrett's contract was like disgusting. I mean, people will forget about that too, because he restructured so much in Cleveland. So you don't want to get. Obviously, a player like Myles Garrett, they want to keep, so it doesn't really matter too much for them. But
yeah,
it only matters if you're like trying to trade the guy, or
if you want to keep him there, you might as well restructure and just push that thing off. It's crazy, dude. So much money.
ESPN came out with their an article. It's the NFL overhaul tiers, where they have tiers in the NFL of like basically top of the list is no need to panic. And then there's like a few moves away. And then I think the next tier is, let me see.
Did you already see where the Lions were?
Sneaky good trajectory. Like there's like different tiers. Oh, I'll ask the chat. Do you think the Lions are in what I'll read you the tiers. You tell me which one the Lions are in. There's no need to panic.
I'm gonna write these down.
No need to panic tier, or there's some NFL teams in it. Then there's the a few moves away tier. And then after that is a sneaky good trajectory, which honestly, I mean, that's like teams that don't sleep on them. And then there's the fourth one, which is somewhere between contention and reset, which hopefully the Lions are not there.
Between. Can I ask you, have you seen this already, this article?
Yes.
So you know where teams are?
Yeah. Well, I know where the Lions are.
I was going to say, if you throw a team out there, I could throw out where I think they are.
Okay.
Or where they should be, and we can see where they're at in the chat if you guys want it as well. We could start with the Lions unless you want to go last with the Lions, but it's up to you.
Let's do the Lions a little bit. I'll name you a couple teams. You tell me which tier they're in. Okay.
Okay.
The first one, the Kansas City Chiefs.
I would say no need to panic. I would have to throw that out there. I think that with the Chiefs, obviously you have Patrick Mahomes, obviously the injuries. Chris Jones is going to be back better than ever. I think they're like a piece or two on each side of the ball away from just being right where they were again. So you could argue maybe a few moves away, but I would say no need to panic.
Shift got just reset.
That's funny.
You are correct. They are in the no need to panic tier. I'll give you another team, the Dallas Cowboys.
I would say a few moves away. I think they're right there. Me and you actually, I'm not going to say credit to us because they didn't make the playoffs, but me and you were on the Cowboys this last year. We actually thought they would be like 9-win team.
We thought they would be mid, and they were close to mid.
Yeah, and I think we thought Micah was going to be on the team all year. They lose Micah to the Packers. They trade him. I still think this team, like if they get like another edge rusher, like a legit edge rusher, and the Cowboys, they're a team to watch out for next year. They could win that division.
Well, you're correct. They are in a few moves away tier.
All right.
I'll give you another team, and then you tell me, and then we'll go to where the Lions are. The Minnesota Vikings.
Wow. I would have to go somewhere between contention and reset. They're like in the middle there. They have so many pieces, but with the situation at quarterback, when you don't have a good quarterback and you don't know there's a question mark at quarterback, that's automatically potential reset. Always, in my opinion. That's how I look at it.
It's a good point. But they are in a few moves away tier.
Wow, that's shocking. I guess one move quarterback, one move away. Like if they had Sam Darnold, they're probably good this year.
Which is fair. Which is fair. Now the Detroit Lions. Where would you? We'll just say there's rename the tiers. A few moves away is the second one. No need to panic is the top one. So it's like no need to panic or a few moves away, and then there's somewhere between contention and reset where they're like, Are we resetting this thing? What are we doing?
Can I ask you a question? This is ESPN, right?
Yes.
Who wrote this article?
This article was written by Jeremy Fowler.
Okay, our guy. Okay, if it was someone else, I was going to say they're probably in the reset. Maybe Jeremy threw them in the reset category. I would say that if I was picking a tier for the Lions going into this year, I honestly I would want to say like they're in that Chiefs spot of the no need to panic, but I'm not saying people need to panic, but I do still think offensive line-wise and defensively, they are still a few moves away from getting back to that contention of being a legit Super Bowl contender. I think this offseason, Brad makes 2 or 3 moves. Maybe it's 1 or 2 bold moves and one other move that really kind of solidifies this thing. I would have to say a few moves away would be where I slot them in, just based off of the offensive line problem and then also the defense last year.
So I agree with you. They are not in the a few moves away category. They were in the no need to panic category. The only 3 teams, again, these are all non-playoff teams that the ESPN covered, not just teams. They are in that category or that tier with the Ravens and the Chiefs. So it's the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Lions. And
no need to panic.
So basically what that means is they think these teams, like they'll be fine. They'll be back and they whatever. I actually agree with you because we had this conversation yesterday or the day prior where I think it was yesterday. We were talking about first round positions where it's like this team has talent, obviously, But it's not like in years past where it's like, yeah, we're pretty much set everywhere but like left tackle. Like, no, you could argue linebacker, safety, maybe another tight end, offensive line, tackle, center. Maybe if you want to argue another guard, fine. Like the corner, we talked about corner, the possibility of a corner. Like, I don't think it's like this, like, oh yeah, they'll be good. People get healthy. They'll be straight. I think it's a few moves away. Like, I think center, left tackle, another pass rusher, maybe, another safety if Kirby and Brian aren't good. Like, I think they're a few moves away, but they think no need to panic. And here's why. Let me show you the what Jeremy wrote about him. So Jeremy wrote here to describe it. He said he talked about the cap space. They're minus 23.1 million. Top free agent Elquidin Muhammad. They have 8 draft picks. And it says here, the hope for a quick turnaround. Detroit still has one of the league's most talented rosters and should jump right back into contention. The hiring of offensive coordinator Drew Petzing isn't splashy, but will prove vital. And it says why it might take longer than hoped. This is the only thing that could set them back. It says Detroit has committed nearly $1 billion to star players. I don't know about star players on extensions, and running back Jahmyr Gibbs is the next to be paid. Will that affect roster depth? GM Brad Holmes faces a balancing act as the Lions need to improve the run defense and add talent to the secondary. So, I mean, yeah, I think that's fair. What's holding them back is all the contract extensions coming up.
Yeah, I think his point.
Back in
I don't think it's a bad thing too. By the way, like I feel like some Lions fans would take it the wrong way, being like, no, there's no need to panic. We're going to be just fine. Like, I know how Lions fans work. I know how people work. I don't think that's the case. Like, it's a bad thing to be a few moves away, because that literally just insinuates like, hey, you're going to go right back to no need to panic and back to Super Bowl contenders if Brad not just makes 2 or 3 moves, but makes the right 2 or 3 moves this offseason. And he's made moves every offseason, but he's just kind of swung and missed on a couple of them. And I think this offseason, maybe I'll say it, like maybe he makes safer swings this year. So you have like I felt like Kevin Zeitler was a safe swing. That wasn't like a massive swing. Like, hey, we hope like that felt like that was a pretty safe swing. The Tate Ratledge one, that's like a massive swing, like a rookie to start for you. Maybe he makes us, we need him to make a couple safe swings, like a couple vets. I don't know. I'm just thinking on the spot here, on my toes.
Yeah, I get what you mean by like safe swing, where it's like Kevin Zeitler's like a Pro Bowler, but he was a 1-year deal for a guy who you knew could fill a void right away. Like,
you knew what you were getting out of him. He's going to be a great.
Like he's not like you
guard.
signed like Quentin Nelson, the superstar guard for max money. Like they gave, but yeah, we need more Kevin Zeitler moves. I would take that.
That's what maybe if he makes 2 or 3 Kevin Zeitler moves, like maybe
Connor
2
McGovern.
on defense, yeah, and then maybe like a center or a guard, and then you draft a tackle. Then it's like, dude, like that's a great offseason. And I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but you do have a Super Bowl roster. You just have a few holes here, man. It's like you have like a $500,000 car, and it's just missing like its front left wheel and its back right wheel, and you're like, all right, where can I get a wheel? Where can we get let's get this $1 million car rolling. Well, I just need to get some tires. You know what I mean? Like that's
it's like pretty important, but yeah.
I need my front left tire to move, but hey, the car's still worth $1 million. It's still a Super Bowl contending team. We need a couple parts.
Yeah.
The spark plug's gone. Hey, someone stole a spark plug. Could I get a spark plug around here?
Yeah. It's like those novelty cars, those collectible cars in the garage that are not running, but you're like, man, if we get this thing running, it's smooth.
Oh,
it looks good. We just got to get it. We just got to get a couple things.
We just got to get a gas tank for it.
Yeah. What? Yeah, we need we need a lot. We need not a lot, but we need a couple things. We do. Before we get to mailbag, I want to show you Phil Yates' mock. Can I show you that?
Yeah, I did see it. Yeah, he has probably one of the most interesting
mocks ever.
Yeah, there is one in there. I don't know if maybe you can guess what I'm thinking of, but I saw it today and I went, wait, well, hold on. Did I see this right?
Yeah. So Field Yates came out with his mock draft, and we'll just go through it quickly. Because we talk a lot about these players now that we're doing mock draft Monday. So I'm kind of curious where some of these guys going. So clearly Fernando's number 1.
Yep.
Arvell Reese number 2. I think that's probably the top 2 picks. After that, Francis Mauigoa, Top 3.
I got him at 17.
Yeah. Yeah. This would be a great pick for the Cardinals. David Bailey going to the Titans.
Texas Tech kid, Jeff. I keep saying Texas Tech. Keep an eye on him.
Giants get Caleb Downs at 5. There you go.
Great for them.
6, Spencer Fanu.
Your guy.
Fano.
Hey, Jeff, what side does he play on?
So here's the thing this is what's ironic about this conversation. I want to make this very clear because would we agree Joe Klatt knows football? Would we agree?
Yeah.
So Joe Klatt mentioned how Spencer has played both sides also. So I'm confused.
He's majority played one side, but he has played both.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's a right tackle who got his job taken by Caleb Lomu, and he transitioned to right tackle, I believe is the story. So he has he's an elite right tackle, but him and it's or I think it was right tackle. I don't know, whatever.
I think Spencer's the left tackle. Caleb's the right tackle.
No, Spencer's the right tackle.
I mean, this guy's put us in an absolute blender.
No, it says right there he's extremely talented player who started the past 2 seasons at right tackle.
Okay, that's what it was then. Yeah, okay.
Right
oh, yes, that was the whole thing the whole time. Yes, Spencer was right tackle. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
that was the whole thing the whole time. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's funny how that works. But Cardinal
because it was hey, he's never played left tackle before. He's a right tackle. And we're like, well, no, actually.
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense. I advise all people out there, if you're going to say something, just think it through and just make sure it makes sense. I do it too.
Double check. Yeah, we all mess up sometimes.
Hey, we all do it, man. Just make sure it makes sense before you try and do stuff like that. All right, number 8, Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. He's a good player. Number 9, Jeremiah Love to the Chiefs. I've seen this a lot actually. Them getting a running back. I don't know, but I guess that would be a nice pickup for them. It'd be interesting. Bengals get an edge. Ruben Bain, 11. Delane, dude, this guy's such a dog, man. I've been watching a lot of it, and I know Lions aren't going to get him, but after we talked about corner, he's like the only. I don't want to say the only. He is one of the only first round pick locks up corner.
If they take, and I'm not saying if he's there. I'm saying if they take a corner, you would think it would be. This would be the only reason that they would pull the trigger on one is because a guy like Mansour.
But he goes to the Dolphins. Number 12, Sonny Styles, linebacker, goes to the Dallas Cowboys.
Great player.
13, yeah, he's a good player too. Rams take Jermod McCoy, another corner, with that 13th pick. It's a good pick for them. 14, Mekhi Lemon goes to the Ravens, wide receiver, USC.
Mekhi Lemon, by the way, is going to be so good, dude. I was watching him yesterday more.
He's like a little slot, deadly slot player. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's interesting.
He's going to be. I think he's going to be very good.
Coming out of USC too, man. Another Amon Ra coming out there. He's going to be good. 15, the Bucs take Cassius Howell, edge out of Texas A&M. 16, the Jets take Caleb Banks, defensive tackle. That's an Aaron Glenn pick right there.
Yeah.
And then 17, Monroe Freeling, the offensive tackle from Georgia.
Can I just be honest? I need to do more work on Monroe Freeling.
So I saw this. I actually watched.
Big dude, though.
Sometimes I watch First Draft with Field Yates and Mel, because they had Matt Miller on and Lewis Riddick on their most recent episode. So it's interesting to hear their perspectives. But I heard him talk about Monroe Freeling, and then I went and watched a little bit of Monroe Freeling. I just dove into him like a day ago. Very, very good pass protector. Very good. Big man, too.
He's big, 6'7", 315, dude, 35-inch arms. He's a massive human, dude.
Great in pass protection. And I know you have the relationship there with Tate Ratledge, obviously. Not that matters, but it kind of does. I mean, they played together. I don't think he has a ton of experience. I have to double-check. That's what they were talking about.
It says he has
18 career starts, yeah.
Less than 1,600 snaps, which, it's...
But he's played well. I mean, he's played really well. So I don't want to say that's... I mean, yeah, maybe you look at inexperience, but...
I want to watch some film on him. He's one of the tackles that I know are going to go in the first. I just haven't watched yet. Can you keep going? Are we? Oh
yeah, we can keep going. I
did. Yeah, because there was something interesting in this. There was something actually crazy in this draft that I don't think a lot of people noticed. But today, when I was going through it, I was like, wait a second.
Oh, nice. So Vikings.
Did you notice? Did you notice anything weird in this draft, or is it? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Does it involve a player that we talked about on Monday?
No, it involves. It's specifically about an NFL team.
Oh, okay. No, I don't. I didn't.
Okay.
19, the Panthers, Akeem Mesidor, the edge. They go edge. Cowboys, Keldrick Falk. They go edge.
Yep.
Oh, there's the top 20 pick. He's right on 20. He's right on 20.
That's funny, actually.
Steelers, Ty Simpson.
Another quarterback from the Steelers, by the way. That's actually crazy. That they just keep doing that, which is so funny.
I know.
They just in the 20. They like if they do take a quarterback at 21, they might have the record for like in a 20-year span taking the most quarterbacks in the within the 20th pick of all time.
Oh, dude, no question.
They just keep doing it.
Kenny Pickett worked out great for him, so let's try it again with Ty Simpson. It's like,
they might. I don't know what their first round picks have been the last like 10 years, but they've had some interesting ones, man.
22. The Chargers get you the guard out of Penn State, which we talked about.
Go ahead, pronounce it.
Olai Vaviga.
Iona.
I don't
know. We have to work on that one.
He fits in. I mean, he's just going to be good. I mean, if you have that type of dude, you got to be good. The Eagles take Max Ianchador. I don't know. He's a project, though. Not a huge fan of him, to be honest. I've seen him mocked to the Lions a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Browns take a wide receiver at 24, 25, Zion Young, edge.
Love Zion Young, by the way.
Yeah, he's Bears taking edge. They're going to go pass rusher. Bills go Peter Woods, good player. He was
Clemson,
projected top 13, 14. I don't know. He kind of had a down year this year, but Bills get a defensive tackle. 27. The 49ers go wide receiver again. I guess it makes sense, right? Ayuk is kind of
gone.
Yeah.
Oh, I think Juwan Jennings free agent as well.
That's true.
Yeah, so that they are going to be looking. They're looking to help Ricky Pearsall out some way, somehow.
Texans go Caden Proctor at 28. I feel like it's a good value though. Like
great, yeah. That's why I have been saying with Caden Proctor, like we've had this conversation. At 17, I don't know about Caden Proctor, but I think he's one of those guys to where if you do move back, he's a guy that falls. I wouldn't hate a Caden Proctor end of the first. 17, I don't know, because I feel like there's going to be. It's like the reason I say I don't know in 17 is because I think he falls. I mean, it's so early on in the process, but I think he's a guy that's going to fall, and you could have traded back and still got him outside the top 25. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, if you're going to draft him at 17, like you might as well trade back, get picks, and still get the guy you like. Like, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, Houston would be excited. I mean, they land Caden Proctor here at 28. 29, the Rams go back-to-back corner.
Okay, that was the weird thing that I said. Rams in the first round. They go corner, 2 corners in the first round, and you know what they do, Jeff? They draft both the Tennessee corners. I was shocked when I saw that. I was like, I had to go back and look. I was like, wait a second. They get both the Tennessee guys to come in there, which they need corner help like desperately. This is like a move where it's like one of these guys have to hit. Maybe they both do.
Yeah, one of those guys have to hit. That's kind of, you know how ballsy that is? Your 2 first-round picks, you just go, screw it, we're taking 2 corners.
He did that with Florida State a couple years ago with Frisker or with
Braden Fisk and Jared Verse. They took
the two Florida State kids.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know. I mean, they do need corner. It's like this is kind of like overcorrecting. It's like, well, we got torched. We're going corner.
What if they both are like extremely good though, and they end up drafting like 2 Pro Bowl corners in the same round from the same school?
Yeah, that's insane. That's kind of what the Falcons did. They needed a pass rush, so they got Jalen Walker and James Pierce.
Yeah,
they just took 2 edges basically. Well, Jalen Walker's a linebacker, but he can blitz. And they just said, "F it, we're taking 2 guys."
When I saw that today, though, I was shocked. I was like, wait a second. I scrolled.
Yeah, no, I didn't notice it. I really did. The one I was, but by the way, Kenyon Sadiq to the Broncos. Not a big Kenyon. I think Kenyon Sadiq's a good player. People were describing him as like the clear-cut tight end 1. I mean,
He's good. He's good.
There's another tight end at Oregon that people are saying is better. He just comes out next year, and he had like the similar production, but I don't know. Like, I think it just speaks on the actual tight end class. I don't think he's bad. This is probably fair for him. I saw him in like top 15. I think that's where I was like.
Yeah, I see a lot of people. I mean, maybe there's a team that pulls the trigger on it. Is he as good as like one of those guys last year? Caleb Lomu at 31. So this is the thing with Caleb Lomu, Jeff, that I was just telling you about when you did your mock. And I know it was the same thing because I was thinking about it yesterday with the kid out of Miami, where it was like he's not going to be available at 17, Boone, to where with you when you did Caleb Lomu at 17, I was like, he's going to be available at 28. So, and you traded to 19. It was like, dude, you might as well trade back 10 more spots and get a bigger.
Yeah,
hole.
and I understand that. I guess where I just didn't want to wait and risk losing him.
Fair.
I just took him, but you're all right. He's projected. He's around the 20s. That's usually.
But if you get back to 28 to 31, you're either going to get Caleb Lomu or like Caden Proctor.
I just don't want to have a situation like you had where you're like, where you're like the Lions miss out on 2 corners that they desperately need. They miss out on Witherspoon and Gonzalez by 1 spot. And then you trade back and he goes like the pick before. I'd be devastated. Or at least like that type of situation. Fair. Like, I'd just be like, dude.
All right, then let's go to like 24 then. Let's go to like 24. You went 2 spots back. Like, what are you getting? A 4th round pick? Like, you might as well. Yeah, you might as well go. You might as well do it like the Falcons did last year, where they didn't do it, but they traded a first to go up to where it's like, hey, if you're the Lions, like, dude, go back 8 to 10 spots and potentially get a first or a 2nd round pick.
And you also have to factor in the teams that you have to see what teams want to make a deal with you. Some teams might just want to stay.
For sure.
So what if there's only one team that wants to make a deal and they're at 29 or 28?
Then you do it.
And you're like, fuck, and no one else wants to. Are you comfortable moving back all the way to 29? Do you think?
Yeah. If you have a handful of tackles on the board that you like, if you like Caleb Lomu and Caden Proctor, and you're like one of them most likely, because it's one of those things that Brad talks about. We're getting so off on a tangent, right? By the way, because we have mailbag, we always skip it because we get talking. But it's like what Brad said. Like, you look at like the thing he was nervous about Tyreek last year is you look at the teams. If you're going to trade back, like what teams are potentially going to go D tackle? Like what teams potentially are going to go offensive tackle? So it's like you gotta do the math. You gotta have an idea of each team's board. And all of that. We should hit some mailbag. We should stay like a minute or 2 over. I feel bad. We just went.
Let's see. Burning issues. He says, mailbag, you can only choose one. Tyler Linderbaum in free agency and can't draft or get a DN in free agency, or Max Crosby in free agency and can't draft or get a center in free agency. So you're basically saying center.
Well, you can't draft?
You're saying Tyler Linderbaum and no edge, or Max Crosby and no center. I would take Max Crosby, bro.
Yeah, because that would make your defense. So and you can, what you would do in that situation? What I would do, I would draft another guard in like the 2nd or 3rd round that could potentially play center, and then I would test Tate at center, and then potentially have a guard, or you have some of these other guys that are sitting in the wings in your building right now. But Max and Aiden would, again, our defense is the reason holding us back right now.
By the way, Jay Hart says, mailbag, in all seriousness, Petzing does look like Rufus from Kim Possible.
No. Shout out Jay Hart, man.
Oh, that is so disrespectful. Rufus is a naked mole rat. I mean, are we really being, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Just did that man dirty, Jay Hart. Come on, man. Yeah, shout out. Hey, Drew Petzing. He says he's better looking than Ben Johnson. That's what he said. That's what he said, man. I'm just the messenger. That's all.
He did. Yeah, I put that on my Twitter today. It did well. It just hit the Bears world, and it was just a bunch of Bears fans being like, "Let us know when you get to a Super Bowl." It's all right, dude. You guys are no fun.
Yeah. You said Bears fans?
Yeah, dude, I had a tweet today about Ellie McNeil, and this is my problem sometimes. I'll throw it out there. I have a problem with Lions fans sometimes, where it's like, you can't, like, dude, I'm not saying, like, I put a tweet out, quote tweeting how Aleem's the 13th
Not all
highest.
Lions fans, but those.
Not all, but, like, there's just a handful where it's like, you say something, and then they just, like, are just, this is gonna sound dumb, but it's like there's like hateful people. It's like, dude, I'm not hating on Aleem, nothing. Like, I'm just pointing out a fact. Like, you can either cut Aleem after next year, you can trade him, but like his contract is $29 million cap hit. It's 27 next year. It's 29 the next year, and then I just get all these Lions fans where it's like, dude, I think Aleem's a good player. When he's playing his best, he's a really good D tackle. But like, you're paying him top 5 money, and it's just like some of the comments I get. There's just like people who are like you're the worst human of all time. Like, you suck at your job. Like, it's like, dude, like, I'm just pointing out.
Yeah. Well, no, you know what?
Dude.
Well, number one, that's the internet in general. So, but number two, there's Lions fans, and then there's the blue wall defenders.
Oh my
and they
gosh.
just don't
dude.
like Lions fans. There's a lot of Lions fans. I like, we have 16, almost, we're going on 16,500 subscribers. Like, we've gathered, there's a lot of Lions fans that are really, logical thinkers and great people. And then there's people that are blue wall defenders that'll spew hate if you disagree with anything that's Lions related.
Like, dude,
dude.
I had a guy comment, Jeff, who was like, he commented at me because I said, someone commented about like, oh, his cash is lower. This, that. I said, and the cash means nothing about the cap hits. And then some guy commented and was like, yeah, there's a big cap hit now, but he's on a much friendlier team deal in the next few years. And I'm like, dude, before you respond, like, at least do the research to like hit me with it right. I was like, the next 3 years, like it was a back end deal. I was like, the next 3 years are all 29 million. I was like, do your research before you comment. And then he goes, well, they can cut him in 2027 and it's a $5 million cap hit. I'm like, hey, bud, like, that's what my original tweet's about, is insinuating to either cut him or move on from him. And then he just starts talking about our show and this, and he's like, you couldn't give me $100 to watch your. It's like, dude, like, some Lions fans are just so hateful. And it's like, dude, you really tried to come at me for my take, and then you turned around and had the same take as me, and then we're just like come on. Like, can we just be normal humans sometimes? Sorry, that's another Booner rant. Here we go.
Yeah, there's
battling today on Twitter, dude. I'm not gonna lie.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You're looking at it right now?
Yeah, that guy sucks.
Oh, he's the worst. And I comment back. I deleted my comment. I sent it, and then a minute later I deleted it because I was just like, Booner, you're putting hate out in the world. I was like, dude, come off of your burner and say this things. Like, what do you do? Like, and then I started saying like obviously you have zero common sense based off of your. So I was like, all right, Booner, you're just being mean. Like, you're doing what he's doing to you. So I deleted that.
Yeah, you're stooping down to his level.
Yeah, I deleted it and I said, I hope you have a great day.
Hey, comments. We've been getting them for a while. It doesn't really matter.
Oh, dude. So I get messages, people, Lion fans, like, you're the worst. Like, it's like, all right, cool, do whatever. I just don't respond.
You know what? I'm just blessed to do this job. I don't really care.
I love it.
Yeah,
that comes with it. You know it.
I appreciate all you guys, man.
Come on.
Merchandise, officialctsports.com. The ones that do support us, hit that like button. Hit the like button on the stream. We'll be back tomorrow. We got our first ever full first round mock draft tomorrow, which,
Oh, yeah. And by the way, too, I don't know if you've told people, start sending us your mock drafts and all our social medias. We're setting up an email. I don't know if we have it yet, Jeff, but
yeah, if you have social media, just send it to us.
Send it on our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever social media that you have. And if you do not have a social media, give us until maybe tomorrow or Monday, and we'll create an email so you can start sending them to emails. But we're obviously mock draft Monday. Tuesday, we're going to do fan mock drafts, and we're going to grade them on Tuesdays.
Let's do it. Until then, we appreciate you all.
Love you guys.